Track of James and let me know when he gets $2 million.
Okay. Welcome to the Scituate Planning Board for May 23rd, 2019. I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. At 7:15, we have a continued public hearing for stormwater permit for Hood Road, and we have a continuance for this. Yep.
I move to accept the applicant's request to continue the public hearing for the stormwater permit for 27 Hood Road until July 11, 2019 at 7 p.m. in the Selectmen's hearing room at Town Hall, 600 Justice Cushy Highway, and continue the time for filing a decision with the town clerk until July 26, 2019.
All right, and I misspoke. At 7 p.m., we're to do board reorganization.
Well, could we
All those in favor say aye.
Do you need a second?
Second.
Second?
I'm for sugar. It's okay.
I guess.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, board reorganization.
I nominate Ian Burbine to continue as chair for the next year, and Steve Pritchett to be vice chair.
We're gonna let the clerk get away?
What's that?
Who wants to be
We're gonna let
clerk?
the clerk get away?
Who wants to
I
be
amend
clerk of the
motion
works?
To leave the officers just the way they are.
Okay. I
Is
didn't
there
know
a
that.
second?
I would second that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's done. Thank you. Moving rapidly along. We have a Form A for 28 Long
Wait
Meadow.
a minute, we do liaison lists
minute.
and stuff.
Oh, jeez,
Pay
Louise.
attention.
No,
I didn't
Wait a
get
minute, is
that.
it too late to change my vote?
no. Okay.
Do you have another one of these?
You can take mine if you want.
It should have been with you, right underneath your agenda.
No, because I brought all my stuff in.
And that's all.
Oh, you came in earlier today and got your stuff, so take mine, that's okay.
All right. All right, advisory board. Who wants to deal with that?
When is it?
It's every Thursday, 6 to 8 weeks prior to town meetings, and one meeting in July for fiscal year transfers.
So we can't, they have meeting date conflicts then, right?
All the time.
Every other Thursday.
And actually, I think they meet sometimes even more than once a week.
Yes, they
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, but they're pretty good about putting out their agenda so you know what's on.
Yeah, I would do it.
Steve. All right, Board of Selectmen, best show in town. I'm going to keep that. Board of Health
I'll keep that.
and Disabilities Bill,
Keep it.
CPA, love it. Like to keep it. What?
Nothing.
Conservation,
No, I'll keep that.
Design Review is Ben,
That's fine with me.
EDC is me and Limbacher. Do you want to stay?
That's nice.
Historical,
I'll do
Patty.
that, yeah.
Housing Trust, Steve.
Do you want someone to jump in?
Yeah, we can have, Rebecca, would you like to do that?
Sure.
Okay.
When does that meet?
Who
It's not
knows?
particularly clear.
Sometimes on Tuesday
It's
nights,
sort
I've
of
seen the
almost
agenda.
as scheduled,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you know,
Seriously.
Yeah, I think it is,
custom schedule.
yeah.
Okay, well,
All right, social.
They never seem to line up when I'm available.
All right, MAPC, Patty's agreed to do
Yeah, if it's right
that.
for the afternoon, I could do that, yeah.
Right, and Brad Washburn, actually, I believe he's becoming chair. Public building,
wait, what's building?
who wants public?
What is the Public Building Commission?
What do they do?
They review public projects, you know, like the schools,
Senior center?
senior center, library.
Every other Tuesday.
I don't mind taking that. I think that's, after this last thing with the senior center, it's an important one, so.
Okay,
Dokes.
I'll keep acceptance and traffic rules.
wait a minute, Public Facilities Master Plan?
I don't think that exists.
I think that's gone.
That's gone,
Lonzo.
yeah.
All right,
Goodbye, Mr. Limbacher.
recreation, it's unassigned.
Mm.
The second Thursday, that's when we meet.
That's when we
Oh,
meet.
well. Street acceptance, that's you, Bill?
Yep,
Traffic rules,
yep.
water resources,
I'll keep that.
Ben. Waterways,
Do you want me to?
Steve?
If Rebecca would like to
Rebecca
do
will
it, that
do
would
it.
be
I'll
great.
do
Let's
it.
give her some more work.
All right.
Just like doing that.
Zoning
So
Board
wait,
of
so that's
Appeals.
Waterways Commission.
Oh, God.
Waterways.
That instead of Ben, I can do
Yeah.
Yeah,
Alright.
I'm going to relinquish. It's a really
Patty
important
and Ann.
liaison,
Okay.
and I
I'll
don't
work with you
have.
on that, Penny.
Okay,
Well,
Thank
I'm
you.
there too, the three of us.
Yeah.
Will platoon.
okay.
One riot, one ranger. Take my name off the list.
You're not
All
on the
right.
list. You're not on the zoning board of appeals.
Oh, my God, this is too funny for words. All right, any other housekeeping things that we need to do at this moment in time?
No, so we don't need to sign anything.
I'll have them sign it then, and then I just,
Okay.
like, do you want to, leaving everyone as is, so, for bills, still have Patty and to sign the bill?
Okay.
I think there's a traffic rules meeting coming up Tuesday night.
Be there or be square.
Next Tuesday?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the 28th.
You get to vote.
No, run around and see if I can find an agenda.
I think it's on the wall,
Is it? Thank you.
on the board.
On the board, on the wall. All right,
You're not all
anything
lined?
else?
They're not all lined?
All right, maybe we move on then to the Form A&R for 28 Long Meadow.
Well, it's not 7:15 yet.
Someone coming in.
It's not a public hearing.
It's the first Wednesday.
Sure, Harvey's here though.
Well, we could do minutes, accounting, and
All right,
that kind
they're
of.
not ready?
Nobody here.
Okay, well, let's do minutes.
I don't know if anybody's coming. I would assume somebody would, but I don't know.
Well, we know that Morse Engineering, unless he sends a surrogate, he's at the Fagawi.
At the what?
The Fagawi,
Fagawi.
on
Civil.
Nantucket.
It's just a boat race.
Civil.
It was stamped by one of his colleagues, though, so we should probably wait.
All right,
He might come.
okay. All right, minutes?
So I move to approve the minute meetings for May 9th, 2019.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have all
All
our
in favor?
documents.
Aye.
Aye.
Put me down as a no vote.
You're a no.
Accounting?
I move to approve the requisition of $108.54 to Gatehouse Media for legal ad for 60 Marion Road, for $108.54 to Gatehouse Media for legal ad for 25 Man Hill Road, for $4,585.87 to Merrill Corporation for peer review of 247 Driftway Drew Company, for $9,667 to Horsley Witten for peer review for Seaside and Scituate, and for $600 to Merrill Corporation for peer review inspections at 92 Neilgate Street.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, all of that. How about liaison reports? Who's got a report about anything?
Report about anything. That's pretty broad.
Hey,
Well, we could talk about the Board of Selectmen meeting the other night.
you may, I wasn't there, so you can talk.
So at the end of the night, one of the last thing on the agenda was Leo Costello came, and he wants to put a sewer down the middle of Long Meadow.
No.
No.
Bittersweet.
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 Where's Bittersweet?
Bittersweet is
Off
off
the
of
Ed
Ann
Vinyl.
Vinyl.
Near
Oh,
the
yeah.
school.
Uh-huh. Now I know it.
And the problem is that since the maps are not all updated, not everybody had the same information. So Mr. Marabito had a hand-drawn map with the houses and stuff, and then the neighbors had an old assessor's map that shows 8 buildable lots, which I thought he had converted to 2 lots several years ago.
So can I back up a second? The overarching thing is that they want to put
He wants to
an
connect to sewer.
independent sewer system in there?
No,
No, he wants
Oh,
to.
he wants to connect to town sewer.
Yes,
and he's gonna put it in for us.
he's gonna wanted to connect to Ann Vinyl and shoot down Bittersweet
Yeah.
to hook up one house,
His house.
his house, on Long Meadow. And people are concerned,
That he's going to make that a pass-through from Bittersweet to whatever,
Fieldstone.
Fieldstone. But the other issue is that Will was there and said that if you count all of the things in the gate right now, what we're gonna build, we're at 98.8% capacity at the wastewater treatment plant. And without that, we're at
I would
94.
bet that it's worse than that.
Yeah,
You're probably right.
Right now, without that, we're at 94%.
Yeah.
So, and then they were talking a
And
lot
is
about.
that, does that include the sort of set-aside they had for North Scituate?
No,
So that component of capacity is still available for North Scituate?
no, I think they're still waiting for an I&I project to come in to cover that. They
No,
did
there was,
talk about
there
North
was a,
Scituate.
there was a component of the total wastewater treatment capacity that was supposed to be preserved
Well, I
for the
don't-
game plan that was,
I don't know that.
which included North Scituate.
Well, they just said for everything that's in the pipeline, for whatever numbers he had, because it's been so rainy in November and April. So,
I guess my point being that if they truly have that set aside, then they're way over
yeah,
what's
Right,
available,
yeah.
right?
and that
Or they've used up the North Situate allotment and
They
all of
probably
that.
used it
They
6
probably used it.
times.
No, at least a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when I went through this with them, that was kind of a set aside for the multi-phase program that they had.
well, that was not brought on the meeting, but I'll have to look
Yeah,
into
you
that.
And the
It's very
other
important.
issue
Yeah.
too is the $2.2 million grant, Mass Works grant, that we received, Brad managed to get
Yep.
for the I&I at Cedar Point to redo the septics, the sewer lines and what have you, and they don't want it. And they have known since 1997 that that's where 40% of the I&I is coming from.
Why doesn't anybody want it?
Because they might lose electricity, and they have grinders, they're all gonna have everything is gonna be paid for, everything. Will cost them nothing. But if they lose power, then they can't use the grinder and they can't flush. Well, there are lots of people in town who are on septic systems with grinders that when you lose power, it's duck soup. So, I don't know.
And if you're out on Cedar Point for more than 48 hours, you're not gonna stay there anyways without power, normally, right? Don't they, isn't that a mandatory evacuation site now?
Sometimes, well,
I don't know if it's mandatory, they try to.
They
try
encourage
to
it,
get them
strongly
out of it.
encourage
And
that.
so, when they asked
Doesn't
him,
seem like that should be an option. If that's contributing saltwater infiltration into the wastewater treatment system, it sounds like a common problem for the entire town
well, it's a
that should be addressed.
40,000 gallons a day they feel from Cedar Point alone.
Mhm.
And they don't want it. And they want further study. And so that's what the board decided, that they would study it some more.
One liaison thing, I missed the Water Resource Committee meeting this week, but I know that during concurrent with their meeting, Becky was presenting, they've come up with a proposal to the water commissioners about basically doing away with single meter metering for water for multi-unit buildings. So basically, they want to make it that each unit would have its own meter. In the town, they did a whole kind of financial analysis, and the town would benefit greatly, particularly from the tie-in fees. Because each meter would be assessed for a new tie-in. But I was just curious, I know they presented
That's
to the
gonna
Board
be-
of Selectmen, so how did that go over?
That
I
was
didn't-
stopped too because they couldn't go forward with that because they didn't understand the math, first of all. And the other issue had to do with affordable housing. Had to do with, don't make it so expensive that people do not want to build here. And how do you pass it on to the people who are either renting or buying? That was a big concern by the Board of Selectmen.
So
A
they,
one-time meter fee?
Yeah,
That's what they're worried about?
with the $14,000, and if you have, they were talking about a master meter or an individual meter, and the $14,000 they think is untenable for affordable housing.
Why would that be? It's a one-time cost. It's not an annual cost, right?
This is what they're saying, is it makes it untenable to build here.
but part of the motivation for
Can't believe a $14,000 connection fee would
Well, that's what they
prevent
were,
people from building
well, that's what they were
apartments.
trying to get through the betterment and the assessment, but it
And also,
was.
I mean, part of the motivation for the work the Water Resource Committee has done is also because not only is this a financial benefit to the town, but also it really encourages people to use, that live in, multi-unit
Yeah.
complexes to use water more efficiently. Because it kind of puts the onus back on the individual unit owner rather than just this nebulous water bill that goes to an HOA and no one, you know what I mean? So it holds people more accountable. So that was part of the reasoning behind it as well. But, well, so they're going to continue the
They're gonna
discussion or they
continue that
voted?
discussion.
Okay.
At EDC, John Tedeschi and his partner, Jamie, whatever, they want to put in an aqua farm over near Bassins Beach
Oh, yeah.
in Cohasset. So they're working on that.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
An aqua farm?
Oysters,
Oysters.
oysters,
Aquaculture.
aquaculture.
Oh, okay.
It's a farm.
Not a fish farm.
No,
Uh.
if it's for oysters.
That reminds me, actually, if you guys think it's appropriate, that actually was a newly formed committee in town. It was a Shellfish Advisory Committee, and I know Jamie Davenport, who you're
Okay.
speaking of, I'm happy to serve as a liaison to that if you think it's worthwhile.
It's worthwhile, yep. All right, it's a little past 7:15. Let's proceed to 28 and 31 Long Meadow. All right. Hello.
Thank you, ma'am. For the record, my name is Jeff Asson, civil engineer with Morse Engineering. And we have a Form A&R subdivision plan in front of you. And the plan is creating parcel A. Parcel A is a small, approximately 7,000 square foot parcel here, and it's labeled not a buildable lot as shown. It'll be divided from 31 Long Meadow Road, and it does not impact the frontage in any way. And 31 Long Meadow Road has more than enough land area there, 1.9 acres remaining. The reason we've filed this plan is that 28 Long Meadow Road here is encroaching over that property line and has for a number of years. They have a shed, lawn, landscaping, and they even have irrigation in. So they are going to purchase that piece of land to resolve that issue.
So, house number 28 is purchasing that
Yes.
Karen?
It's just really an internal change in lot line, which doesn't affect access or frontage. So I would recommend that you endorse the plan.
Any questions from the board?
Sounds okay to me.
Here you go.
I move to endorse as approval not required a plan of land showing a division of land off of Long Meadow Road in Scituate, Massachusetts. Parcels included 27-6-20A and 27-6-20B, stamped by Douglas L. Aberg, PLS of Morse Engineering Company, Inc., for applicant Harvey E. and Susan B. Gates, and owners Harvey E. and Susan B. Gates and Carol A. Craig and Michael D. Bonomi, trustees of the revocable trust agreement of Carol A. Craig and Michael D. Bonomi dated 5/2/19. As the division of the tract of land shown on the accompanying plan is not a subdivision because it shows a proposed conveyance or change in lot line which does not alter the existing frontage as required under the Scituate zoning bylaw.
Is there a second?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Number 3. All right, what else shall we do for the next 10 minutes?
Planning and development report?
Sure.
Well, we are remaining extremely busy. We have, the senior center came in today, so we'll be scheduling a site plan administrative review for the end of June. We are still working with Toll Brothers. They are moving along, trying to get things stabilized and to binder in phase 1. We haven't seen a lot of action out at 90 and Vinyl. They have 2 building permits, so they're working on 2 houses out there. I've been told they've put in the tank for the septic system, but I don't see any other work as it relates to the septic system. I am getting weekly SWIP reports from them, and of course, weekly SWIP reports from Toll Brothers, who we still have pretty much daily observation now, and we will reevaluate that at the end of May.
Okay.
And we are working on trying to come up with some draft conditions for the Drew Company. I probably expect another submittal in, but for some of the comments that we left off last time with, but we don't have anything yet. Still have a number of stormwater permits, accessory dwellings, etc. So it remains very, very busy.
Do we have time to talk about, no, we don't want to do that. What else is on here?
What was
50 Country Way? Or is,
what about Union Street?
Mr. Hallen's going to be coming in later.
For today, right?
Yeah, tonight.
Oh, good.
Well, we should hold that one off then.
yes.
I think, I assume Mr. Gent is coming,
Okay.
and I know Chick Fagan's coming,
Yes,
so
he is.
those items all down there, you might want to hold off on them.
Chick is here.
Oh,
He just came in.
Just appeared.
He is.
Yep,
Where is he?
he just went
Sign
that
his
way.
name.
Oh,
I saw him.
he's in the room.
80s.
well, I mean, I can ask him if he wants to come in and discuss that now, before
Is-
the preliminary plans, if you
Been a
want.
5-minute discussion.
I don't know. There he is. We're running ahead of schedule, Chick.
Are you prepared to talk about your item for the parking discussion?
Yeah, sure.
Or we can wait.
Oh, we can wait.
Oh, we
Wait
can
till
wait.
late.
We can wait if
Wait
you.
till late.
You want me to wait till late?
No.
No.
I just moved the microphone so that everyone on TV land can hear you. Thank you. You are on for 60 Country Way. Parking discussion.
Okay, everybody received the letter? There's been not a change of plans, but I just want to confirm that we're doing the right thing. I talked to Karen about the use of the building and what can be used in that district. And on the plan, it says you can have retail, and somebody's come up to me and wanted some of the space for retail. And before I went any further, I wanted to make sure it was okay with the planning board. I'm sure it is, but I just have to get the blessing. And so we had a meeting with Karen, and she said, write a letter, explain what is going on, and that's where it stands. And I'll answer any questions you have.
Karen?
All right, so the plan was approved for this mixed-use special permit with warehouse space for the 2,700 square foot building. They may not use all of it as warehouse space, so as a conservative estimate, we did, they ran the numbers with retail, which which would yield, right now there's 14 parking spaces proposed on that site. So 14 parking spaces would, that's the same number that comes out if you change the amount of warehouse to part of that being retail. So the ultimate plan would be, if the board agrees that this is a reasonable interpretation, by going to the most conservative parking count at the 1 per 200 for the retail, then ultimately they will be coming back in to modify the site plan administrative review for the microbrewery, picking up additional spaces on that side by 9 spaces, because it'll be restriped angle, and the circulation will go through into 60 Country Way, one-way circulation. So there'll be a total available on the 2 sites of 40 parking spaces, which will go a long way towards any parking issues that are remaining at the area. Some of the employees do park on another one of Mr. Fagan's properties. Some of them park down at the storage unit, some of the employees. And it seems like a reasonable approach. Plus, you have about 5 street parking spaces in front there. So ultimately, there's going to be some traffic improvements suggested to the Traffic Rules Committee about making that one-way, and possible improvements at Jenkins and Union, which would make the flow of traffic there a lot better.
All right, questions from the board?
The retail use, what kind of retail use? I mean, is it a restaurant or something, or is it?
As it stands now, it's not a restaurant, no. The brewery may use it for potential overflow, but it could be used for any retail that's allowed on that property, because they're 2 separate pieces of property. And I think we're thinking about just 60 Country Way, not 6 Old Country Way at this point. I just want to be aware that I can have, whether they do it or some other business goes in there, which is allowed on that property in Greenbush. That's what I want to make sure you're okay with, that I can, and if the brewery does take it, you have to approve that, however they use it. But if another business decides to go in there, I have a wood carver, I have, there's certain people that would like more retail space down in Greenbush. And I wasn't really aware that it was that desirable, but I just want to make sure that before I go forward, that it's already been approved for retail, I mean, just because of the zoning. But I want to make sure what your feelings are on it.
I mean, my thought on it is, we looked at it as a warehouse, and if part of it now needs to be retail, I just would want to make sure we thought about it as retail space as well as warehouse space. And if there's any other things that we ought to address on the retail side that we didn't think about when we looked at it as purely warehouse space.
Well, it does have the parking there, and it does have,
Meet the requirements.
it meets the requirements. It has, sidewalk, circulation. It's,
Okay, so you've looked at this, and
We-
you've gone through the
we've
requirements,
looked at it,
and
it
you think
seems
it's
to-
all addressed.
It seems to make sense that it's there. It's,
No,
part of this will all
I'm
be.
just saying, you've looked at the requirements,
Yeah,
and you
it-
think it meets all those?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't see a downside to it. I think one is it introduces an additional retail. It comes back up, traffic flow is, I think, important. It's controlled to a single outlet, and you get parking. I mean, that's more than a win-win, it's a win-win-win.
No, I wasn't suggesting that the overall plan is negative. All I was suggesting that is, if we were to review the retail, I want to make sure we covered the same basis we would with any retail, right?
Valid point.
Okay, Patty?
No, I'm all set, thanks.
I'm all set.
Well, I'll say, as long as the parking and the traffic works, I actually, to be honest, when I first heard it was all warehouse, obviously you're entitled to do whatever you want, but I was kind of disappointed. So the fact that maybe there's going to be some more retail and try to enliven the village concept, I actually like that better personally.
Yeah. Well, I think, it definitely meets the parking requirements. I just didn't want you to be surprised if
Yeah.
this happens, and especially if we go, with the parking, make it go all the way around, and all of a sudden there's retail and you go, why didn't you tell us?
Right.
But it is allowed, and I just didn't want to surprise, basically.
Okay, well, we appreciate your being so forthcoming. Thank
Oh.
you.
I appreciate you taking me early. Jeopardy's on.
Bill wants to
In a
know.
hurry.
Bill wants to
Apparently,
know.
I'm the only one that's interested in what James is doing.
To deviate that.
Is he still on?
Yes.
Yes,
He's
gonna
got
make
$2 million
$2 million.
he's
tonight.
gonna hit $2 million tonight.
All right,
He's going
we
to
don't
give
need
it
a
to
mo-
the library, which is even better.
What, oh, he is?
Giving a lot of money to his local library, yep.
We don't need a motion here, do we? This was just a discussion.
No, and I can follow up by email, or the board discuss it and is in agreement with your letter,
Right,
something like
okay.
that.
So you're all set?
All right, great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening. Thank you.
All right, we are right on time
That's your
for...
water check?
Check.
You water?
Your plastic bottle?
Things happen
And
so
your
quick.
plastic.
All right, we have a preliminary subdivision plan, Buckeye Lane, who came up with that? And Stockbridge. And who is the proponent?
I believe Mr. Delisi is coming.
I'm waiting for Jeff Delisi. I can start with him if you prefer.
I would prefer to move things along.
We could just continue this one and move on to the next one.
All right, we'll continue, sit down.
Same attorney for all of them.
Oh, it's the
We
same
can
attorney.
continue
for-
along. Get out of here early.
No, I think it makes sense to take them in the order that we listed them
Right.
on the agenda.
And it's the same attorney for each and every one of them?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
I hear someone coming. I know, he was worried about being a little late, so.
Aha.
Hello. You're right on time.
I
First bill of hours.
want to apologize and thank you at the same time.
You're lucky we had 4 more minutes and we were just going to go through all of them.
Yeah.
And continue every one of them.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. I was in a meeting over in Cohasset. It's all right, so you have to read it, or do you just want me to dive in?
Dive in, identify yourself, and tell us what you want to do, what you're doing, etc.
Thank you very much. All right, so Jeff Delisi, I'm here with Paul Marabito tonight for this application, the first one of which I believe is the Buckeye Lane. And then there will be 3 other applications following this, all preliminary subdivision applications. And Jeff Hassett will help me out with the last of them, which has to do with McDonald Terrace. Just as a brief outline here, okay? The filing of these 4 applications, because I understand that what we're doing here is a bit unorthodox. These 4 applications are the result of advice from clients in multiple towns who own properties that have some development potential, okay? And so we're advising clients, or identifying properties and advising clients in that regard. This process, this preliminary followed soon by a definitive plan process, has nothing to do with what the plans show on paper. And it has everything to do about the process itself. And what I mean by that is that state law, 48 section, Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 6, it has certain requirements that if from a smart and prudent land development standpoint, if we hit those requirements, will in the future allow us to opt to seek permits under zoning bylaw that basically allow us to choose whether we would apply the zoning regulations in effect at the time of the filing of the preliminary plans,
or any subsequently enacted zoning ordinances or bylaws. And so this process that we're beginning tonight with these 4 preliminary plan subdivisions, we did 3 of them in Cohasset a few months back. This process, under law, would effectively allow us to freeze the zoning in place at the time of the filing for a period of 8 years after the approval. Okay, and so, but for purposes of the public, for purposes to you, I could definitively state to you with 100% certainty that my clients will never install the subdivisions that are shown on these plans before you. And that the purpose is to file plans that show subdivisions so that we can engage in land use planning that makes sense for the owners of the property and the community in the future. So with that, I mean, I'm happy to answer any questions. I know that I've spoken with Karen about this process a bit. I know that she understands it, but I'm happy to have Paul explain the plans.
Okay, Paul.
Yeah, sure.
Steve?
I guess I don't quite understand your statement there, that this is somehow a benefit to the community, right? Because what you're actually saying is you're freezing the old zoning bylaws so that the new zoning regulations that are going in are not in effect.
Well, it's giving us the option of choosing either or.
Right, so,
and
which
presumably
is
the
on
ones-
your, so that's your decision, right? I'm not saying that, I wouldn't say that that's in keeping with the community's decision, because the community has decided that the new zoning bylaws are how we ought to look at these things. So,
Your opinion?
I would
noted.
say
Yeah.
it's not consistent with that.
Okay.
Paul?
My name is Paul Marabito from Ross Engineering Company, representing the applicant for this preliminary subdivision plan. This first plan I'll quickly explain. This shows the outline of the main body of the parcel. It's what's known as the Scituate concrete plant property. Their frontage is on the Driftway. They also own several homes along Stockbridge Road. There's a series of buildings here and pipe works that are in existence today. What I've done for presentation is prepare a plan. The lot layout plan is actually on 2 sheets, so I reduced the 2 into 1 sheet for purposes of presentation. These lots outlined in yellow are the lots that would be the subject of the preliminary and the definitive plan. Again, this is a larger parcel with the Scituate plant here. This is their office. We come in with a small cul-de-sac, calling it Buckeye Lane. There'd be 2 buildable lots off the cul-de-sac. And these other parcels are single-family homes that are along Stockbridge Road. There's also property owned by the Browns, who are related to the Hoffmans, I believe, and we've included their property as well. We have asked for several waivers from the rules and regulations where it is a preliminary plan, and knowing that this would never be physically constructed, and again, the purpose of this is to protect the land and give the owner the option of working with the land now or in the future under either set of regulations of the zoning bylaw. I think with that, I'll end and answer any questions you may have.
All right, Karen?
All right, so state law allows for a legal, preliminary plan as a legal mechanism to freeze the existing zoning when a zoning change is proposed. It's allowed under the state law, and within 7 months, the applicant will file a definitive plan, and then that freezes the zoning for 8 years. All this really is a placeholder for the applicants to allow which zoning they want to go for in the future. And so they have done some plans. they have provided some information. A lot of information is not there for a preliminary plan, but they have asked for waivers. And so the suggestion that you ask them to look at things in a definitive plan is the items that I have included in your motion here. So again, you would want to see utilities, your list of waivers, your observation pits, your traffic information, and they may, again, ask to waive that when it comes to the definitive state, but those are things that are required for any subdivision, and you are allowed to ask for them. It's a process that a lot of towns are seeing now as a way to freeze zoning. I have run this draft decision by town council, who concurs to its format and content.
So are the subdivision plans that we're seeing tonight collectively essentially subverting the new zoning bylaw that's been presented?
I can't say that at the moment. They're giving an option to
I
use,
get you
to
that.
use
I get-
either,
no,
to
I
use
get-
either
I get
zoning.
that, but if they use the old zoning, then it would effectively negate the new
Yes,
zoning.
yes.
And is that the majority of the Greenbush district here?
It's for,
How much
it's
of
for
it-
4 properties here. I haven't done land area-wise, how
Quite a
big
bit.
these are, but it's several properties. I mean, this one being, I believe, the largest of the 3 properties being discussed tonight. I wouldn't say it's half of Greenbush, but I mean, it's a legal mechanism that's allowed to be done.
Bill?
A preliminary plan is not really binding. I mean, so you can vote to approve it or disapprove it. I mean, you can vote to disapprove it, but still ask them to look at stuff when they come back with the definitive plan.
We've done this before.
Yes.
I don't think the motion was as articulate as this one is, but it was basically been done before. All right. When we went through, we made certain the underlying zoning was changed, and this really protects the landowner so that they has access to that.
Yes.
That's it for me.
Yeah, Patty?
I'm okay. I agree with Steve. And I know it's a legal mechanism, so let's hear from the lawyer.
Let's hear from the lawyer. Rebecca?
I'm gonna let Ben go first.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with Patty and Steve, but it's more a matter of opinion, just because we worked hard on the new zoning and felt that it was I would like to see people use the land use planning and the kind of thoughtfulness that we use. All the work that went into that, I would like to see that come to fruition, but that's my opinion, and I understand what you're kind of trying to do as a legal mechanism. That being said, I just need clarification from somebody. Waivers that would be granted under these so-called preliminary plans, could those waivers be carried throughout the definitive plan process? Like if a definitive plan came forward, would those, and then I know you're saying there's 100% uncertainty, or 100% certainty they're not going to be built, but let's say.
Let me see if I can take a crack at this one. And I'll let Karen jump in, but a similar question was asked recently in relation to a zoning freeze application in another town. And it provoked a conversation that involved town council, which happens to be the same firm which is your town council. And what the board articulated that they were concerned with in the definitive approval process in that case was that, well, geez, if we grant these waivers, and then what's to prevent you from actually, what if you just decide to build that subdivision, then we will have waived requirements that we normally otherwise would not waive in subdivision context. And so, a couple of things with where we landed with this is the planning board in that instance conditioned approval of the definitive and said, if you record the plan, because the plan, you can't effectuate any subdivision permit unless the plan is recorded. And the law says that if you don't record the plan within a certain period of time, matter, I believe maybe 6 months or so, that the decision, that the decision of the board expires. If you don't record the plan, then, so they conditioned it and said, if you don't record the plan, if you do record the plan, then you have to come back to us within a certain time frame for a modification and comply with all of the regulations of the subdivision control law. And effectively, what that did was it allowed, because everybody understood the process here, it allowed a lot of the red tape that normally is associated with these subdivisions, like a lot of the stormwater and all these things, these good things that you all go through with every application, to not waste your time because it's not going to be built. And so it basically said, if you record it, then you had that's going to provoke a requirement to come back and fully comply. And effectively, what happens is that the plan never gets recorded. The decision actually expires under law, but the freeze is still there, and that's the whole reason for the process. So you might want to consider that. I know that in a preliminary context, my opinion is it doesn't go. You still have to request it. Still have to comply at definitive. You still have to request waivers in definitive, and they still have to be voted to be granted. And it doesn't automatically carry through. But the board might want to consider, in a matter of efficiency, maybe similar setup than what we had over in that other town. And I'm happy to talk more about it with Karen. I've provided her with that decision, actually.
And town council has been provided that decision as well.
Okay.
Which is what we have.
And so what's the
Town council has
mechanism?
been provided the decision from that other town that Mr. DeLisi just spoke about, how they approved that definitive plan.
But what was the mechanism they included?
So it was a condition of approval, Steve,
Condition.
that said, if you record we're going to grant you these waivers, but if
So there was a clause that said if you
Yeah.
record this, then you wipe the slate clean and you have to
you
start
have to
over.
come back and complete the application 100% without waiver.
And obviously, when a definitive plan comes in and, we do a decision, we would run that by town council as well.
Yeah.
Let me see if I understand this correctly. You have, if we were to approve this evening, you have 7 months to come up with your definitive?
We have 7 months to file a definitive plan. Yes.
And if you do not file the definitive plan,
Within that 7 months,
then this is a moot point, or you have 8 years?
this is a moot point, because we will have then, we cannot get the
Slip
benefit of the
them, right.
freeze. If we file the definitive plan, then we have the benefit of the freeze.
But if you don't, it's done.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, so this effectively gives us an opportunity, to Ben's point, we spent a lot of time on those bylaws, right? And they're very comprehensive. One of these properties, we don't even have a concept, we're not even sure we're even gonna be filing an application for anything concerning it. A couple of them, we are thinking about concepts, and the bylaws is quite comprehensive, and it's we were not certain that it would pass, and we were not certain that it would pass in the manner that you sent it to town meeting with. Like, in other words, it could have been amended. So our kind of, what we kind of kicked around was, as well, let's review all of these after we know that it's going to pass, after the Attorney General approves it, after we know what it says, so that we could effectively plan. And so, this gives us some time, the 7-month period of time gives us some time to analyze, because it very well might be that at the end of the day, the analysis is that even though you have passed more regulations, that those regulations allow us to take advantage of certain bonuses that we weren't otherwise able to take advantage of. And so it very well might be that we opt to go under to waive the freeze essentially. And so I guess I'm trying to answer your question and then extrapolate maybe what you were about to ask. I'm sorry to be so verbose.
Okay, all right, so,
And so what is the effect of if we don't approve this preliminary plan? How does that affect anything?
Not aware that it does. I mean, you've denied preliminary plans before, and they've come back in.
I mean, how does it affect the freeze?
It doesn't. If they file it within 7 months, then with a definitive plan, then they'll have a zoning freeze. And right now, we're about a third of the way through the time period with the AG's time to review the bylaw. I mean, it was filed immediately after town meeting, and you have till approximately July 11th to hear back from the Attorney General. And so they're just trying to, use a mechanism that gives them options.
Rebecca?
I know I read the motion, but I can't remember. Is it waiving anything or no? I don't have it in front of me right this moment.
No, I mean, what I would recommend is that we give direction to, I put in approval, but you can always say disapprove, with direction to guide the development of the subsequent definitive plan. And that's where I came up with the list of, drainage, sewer, water, the list of waivers. You want the observation pits, traffic, and, we said this is intended as a zoning freeze, but, and it's designed, but all these preliminary plans right now are shown without the benefit of any soils information. So you would want some of that to construct a definitive plan. But it's, like Attorney DeLisi said, they could ask for that to be waived next time, and then if the plan was actually going to be built, they, some things like that would be in a condition.
Okay.
All right, what is the pleasure of the board? And this is really just a stakeholder.
Yeah, it's a placeholder. Yep.
Is there comments from the public?
Any comments from the public?
I was just wondering, we came in.
Excuse me, could you just identify yourself, please?
B.T. Sam, I live on Stonebrook Road. I live across from Brown's City Company property. And we were just wondering what they were going to do with it.
I'm not sure that they even know what they're going to do with it, basically. Am I correct?
This is the one plan that we haven't even had the discussion.
Right. They don't even know what they're going to do.
Okay. We didn't know if they were going to build houses or
No,
what.
they have, no, nope. So this is just a placeholder they have 7 months to come up with something, and if they don't in 7 months file a definitive plan, then this goes away.
Can I,
How would they file something if they don't know what they're going to do?
That's the $64,000 question.
that's the dilemma.
So we'll have to wait and see.
And will the public know?
Oh, absolutely, without question. You will know. As soon as we know, you'll know.
Can
Okay?
I just say, a definitive subdivision plan requires a butter notification.
Yes.
So abutters will be notified if and when a definitive subdivision plan is filed, and if any development proposal is filed, special permit, et cetera, will require a butter notification.
Yeah.
Well, this is like an existential question here, which is, so the builder gets to choose what option they want, which is to their benefit, correct? Is that what you're telling, kind of?
It's what the law provides.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
And in all the time that we were working on this zoning bylaw, which was several years, you couldn't come up with a definitive plan at all this time? Just one of those questions.
I suppose, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
It's just one of those things that, oops, a zoning bylaw is coming and we need to do something. We understand how that works.
there's a lot of factors that go into
Yeah, I understand. It's not-
money
It's
and-
never that easy. I know that, yeah, but it's
life.
Mostly money,
mostly money, yeah.
mostly money.
And it is highly encouraged in your subdivision regulations for a business area that you file the preliminary plan first before, I think it's actually a requirement that you file the preliminary plan first before a definitive plan.
Right, we have a very specific set
Right,
of
we have a-
requirements for that.
Yes,
A lot of which aren't being met here.
right, and they've asked for waivers right here.
All right, what is the pleasure of the board?
Well, it seems to me, if what they're trying to, they've already accomplished what they've tried to accomplish, which is they've put a placeholder in
Yep.
where the freeze is. I'm not really inclined to spend any time thinking about any of these plans if they're not gonna do it. And it almost seems to me that the best thing to do is just to reject all of them and let them file the definitive plan whenever they're gonna file the definitive plan. Because apparently that's what you can do, right?
There must be an apparent downside to
That we don't
rejecting
know.
the plan, but I'm not sure I know what it is.
Well, I guess there's a downside in my mind of spending any time thinking about these things and waiving all these requirements and sort of subverting our requirements just to get this freeze. If we reject the plan, they still have the freeze as long as they file their definitive plan in 7 months. Am I wrong about that?
That fact pattern has not been anything that I really thought about, because every time I've been in this seat in the past, including in this town, the preliminary plan was never denied. The way I read the law, Steve, is that under the law, what's required is that I file the preliminary plan. It doesn't say anything about the preliminary plan being approved. But it almost sounds like a spite vote no. Like you would be voting no just to spite the fact that we're availing ourselves of the process that the law affords of us.
That's not it at all. I don't want to create the impression that we've done any work at reviewing any of these things, because we have not, right? And you're asking to waive all, I mean, if somebody came in with a true preliminary plan that they wanted to review, we would ask them to have all these things done, right? And so we're sort of saying, well, in this case, it's all kind of, it's just a piece of paper, right? And you're sort of asking me to treat it as if, we did a rigorous review the way we're supposed to and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm just asking if it's just more expedient to say, let's completely recognize what's going on here. We'll reject these definitive these preliminary plans, and as long as that doesn't affect your 7-month deadline, it wouldn't seem to have an impact one way or the other. But it wouldn't.
As I sit here right now, I don't know if it would affect it or not. There is certainly a possibility it would negatively affect that process. And
I would suggest that it would negatively affect it. I understand what you're saying, Steve, and I agree that in one sense, as Ben has said, they're circumventing the 2 or 3 years that we spent on coming up with this zoning. But I remember a long time ago when Title V went into being, and you were one of the characters that came through here, Paul. Characters. with perimeter plans. And the perimeter plans allowed, they weren't Form As, but
3 years protection.
3 years protection. And so basically, you didn't have to prove anything. And so, and one of your engineers wanted to perimeter the entire town at that moment in time.
Follow the assessor's maps.
Yeah.
I would suggest this is a little different.
It is
in that,
different, it is different,
We have a
but-
set of requirements in the subdivision regulations that say, here's a requirement for a preliminary subdivision plan. And I feel like, is that the only time we're gonna see a preliminary subdivision plan, is when people are saying we're not gonna build it? So we should just sort of ignore all those requirements?
No.
We've had some preliminary subdivision plans before. I mean, I found a couple examples back from 2008 and 2009 where one of them approved it with very specific things that they wanted the board to, the applicant to look at, hydrant locations, buffers, septic systems, LID.
I think that's good. I mean, because that was obviously a plan that somebody was planning to build. Right?
There was-
These are plans that nobody's planning to build.
What if this, and this might be totally illegal, but what if you could put a condition that said that upon the definitive plan being filed, it will never be recorded? Is that something that, to kind of be a safeguard for this board, so that we're, to Steve's point, like, we're not really it's a very perfunctory review of these plans that we're doing, and so it's kind of safeguarding us that our very limited review and all these waivers we're granting and everything will be protected from those kind of that being taken advantage of in the future. Do you kind of see what I'm saying?
I do, and I understand it, and it makes sense to me. I think that the better way of doing it is rather than putting in a condition that may not be legal or may be legal, I don't know, I'm not a judge, to put the condition more along the lines of, if you record it, you've got to come back and you have to comply with all of the regulations without waiver.
Makes sense.
I mean, we can probably go through an exercise that, in my estimation, both in the preliminary and in the definitive, that would just be wasteful of time. And so that, I think that would, you can put a condition of approval in the preliminary plan that advises that, of that exact scenario. The concept of the preliminary plan is to discuss and clarify issues of the subdivision. It's
Right, yeah.
and and the subdivision rules and regs, while it also contemplates, not requesting waivers, right? Because that's
Right.
exactly your point.
Right.
It also contemplates allowing an applicant to request waivers, and it affirmatively has a provision in the regs that says, please list all the waivers that you're requesting and why. And I think one of the reasons why the preeminent reason why we're requesting the waivers is exactly because we're just going through a theoretical exercise.
Yeah, which brings me back to our original
I
point,
understand.
which is
Yep.
the quickest way to deal with that is just deny them all, and you've already filed them, and then your clock's ticking.
Deny it,
I
puts
mean-
the ball over the net, so the ball, it's in your court to come back up with a definitive plan.
Right.
And you gotta do it in 7 months.
Yep.
Which is, I think what we were, that's the reason I asked the question, is that if it doesn't have any
But I don't-
pejorative impact one way or the other, then that seems like that avoids,
Karen indicated that it wouldn't have an effect. I'm not sure I agree. I haven't done the analysis, Steve. But I do read the law to say that in order to avail yourself of the benefit of this procedure, that it's required that you file a preliminary plan with notice to the town clerk prior to the town meeting, and that you followed by the filing of a definitive plan within 7 months. So really, our 7-month clock started when we filed the preliminary plan, not with any action that you're gonna take tonight. I'll be filing a definitive plan application within 7 months of the date of filing of this.
Which is about 5 months from now.
Yeah. Mhm.
So whether we approve or disapprove, you will still have until, what is it? Is it October?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Plus minus,
around
yeah.
that time.
October. So, if we deny it, then you still have until October to come in with the definitive.
Right, I just can't say whether a denial would cause us to lose our potential our potential freeze, and that's just something that didn't even occur to me would happen in a preliminary plan context, but I understand Steve's point. I would ask that the board grant it with the waivers. We're gonna come in with the definitive anyway. If it doesn't matter one way or the other.
All right, Steve.
Well, no, if you're not convinced this would work, or work that way, I mean, from my perspective, and just as a member of the planning board and thinking about the time and the effort we spend on these things, it seems like a lot of a waste of time on our side to do this. But if denying it doesn't sort of effectuate what you're trying to accomplish here, then I think we should condition it in a way that you had suggested on recording and all of that, and sort of be clear that, we could do that in the motion. I guess I would be clear in sort of a general sense is that our hope and at least my hope and desire is that as you look at this, you will look at the way the new zoning bylaw was created and the spirit in which that was created, which is something, the community approved, and develop something in line with that.
Right, but and I appreciate that, and I thank you for throwing that option on the table. And I would hope that you would take that option. And, we won't be coming in, I don't think, as I sit here right now, I can't expect to be filing an application for any one of these properties within the next few months. So I don't know if I would get it in, but I understand what you're saying, and we simply haven't made the analysis. I mean, the bylaw that you guys passed is very comprehensive. It's very, I'm not sure what to think about it yet, to be honest with you. I don't know, I haven't made an analysis on any one of these properties. And I understand that, I know you guys put in all that time.
It wasn't just us, I mean, it was.
Right.
It was a very extensive.
Yeah, you hired
Community
consultants
input and all of that,
yeah.
so I'm not just saying it's us, I'm saying more the town itself, right?
Right,
So-
but to go to your first point, this process, to use the word subvert, we haven't decided to subvert your zoning bylaw yet. We provoked this process because we had to before the town meeting. We're gonna go down that road. If in this interim period of time, we're able to make that analysis for some of these properties that we see the potential for developing very shortly, we'll be engaging in that analysis and deciding, because we know it would be much more well-received from you if we came in under the new regs. I know that.
Yeah, well,
You don't have
that's
to
what I'm
put it as a
encouraging.
condition in your approval, because I know.
No, that's why I'm saying, that's why I said, we'll
Yeah.
deal with the approval separately, but just as a general comment, from, my own opinion.
So where are we now?
All right.
So how would we rewrite this clause about being recorded? Do we have a language for that?
Well, a preliminary plan doesn't get recorded,
Yes, the definitive plan.
so it's
No,
only
I'm
the definitive.
saying the
plan.
clause that if it gets recorded.
Well, we would work that out when we get to the definitive
There,
plan.
there's no mechanism to allow a preliminary plan to be recorded, because the whole concept
Okay.
is really to just vet big red flag issues. There is, when it comes in for definitive, and I can give you the language that was run through town council in the prior one on that.
I didn't give you all the case law that they provided at this point in time, because it's just.
Thank you.
It's just a preliminary, plan.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we need to communicate anything about that in
Not at,
the
Well, I
motion?
mean, I kind of did a little bit down in the bottom one. I mean, I said, as this approval is issued with the understanding that the project is not intended to be constructed and the submission is for the purposes of a zoning freeze, the planning board's approval is based on the assertion that the submitted site plans were designed without regard to soil testing, and which will be needed if the applicant plans to construct a subdivision, and this information shall be included in the definitive plan documents, which shall be submitted according, this is all subdivision regs and Chapter 48, Section 6. So I've tried to take that into account, as well as asking for key information, which you ask in all your subdivisions, the observation pits, the traffic information, whatever waivers they're proposing at the time, utilities. Obviously, they would have to do the road layout, but, this is basic information that you would ask in any definitive plan. The Board of Health had no comments on any of these.
And DPW, nothing? Nobody had any comments?
Sewer Division had some minor comments, but they, geared towards if it becomes a real
If it's real, then
development.
obviously.
So they would have to abide by whatever the Sewer Division, for laying of pipe connections, et cetera.
Right, Steve? You want to add something?
Well, I'll let you read this, but, I can add it afterwards if you want to do that.
So I move to approve the preliminary subdivision plan of land at Buckeye Lane and Stockbridge Road, Scituate, Massachusetts, by Ross Engineering Company, Inc., dated March 19, 2019, for 1 Buckeye Lane and number 261, 253, 251, and 225 Stockbridge Road, with direction to guide the development of the subsequent definitive subdivision plan as described below. Existing and proposed utilities, including stormwater drainage, sewer and water, with comments from the Sewer Division specifically addressed. A list of waivers, observation pits, traffic information. As the approval is issued with the understanding that the project is not intended to be constructed and the submission is for the purposes of a zoning freeze, the planning board's approval is based on the assertion that the submitted site plans were designed without regard to soil testing, and which will be needed if the applicant plans to construct a subdivision, and this information shall be included in the definitive plan documents, which shall be submitted in accordance with provisions in MGL Chapter 41, Section 81K to 81GG, and to MGL Chapter 48, Section 6.
Is there a second for discussion?
second.
Steve?
Okay, so I think, this feels like we're creating,
A monster?
no, just superfluous
It is superfluous.
things, but I would say that, the kind of the direction we would like to give to people would be with respect to existing proposed utilities, including stormwater, drainage, sewer, and water. And I would say sewer and water capacities, right? And comments from the Sewer Division specifically get addressed. I would also say that, I'm not sure I would say, oh, give us a list of your waivers necessarily. I would say provide a subdivision that is not looking for waivers, or minimizes the need for waivers or something like that. Because I don't think we're looking to approve a large laundry list of waivers.
No, you're right.
If this is direction to help you develop the definitive subdivision, right? Observation pits, et cetera. I would say that your sentence that you had there, Karen, that said, without regard to soil testing, I would say approval is based on the assertion that the submitted site plans were designed without regard to a number of preliminary planning subdivision requirements. You can say, including soil testing if you want, because there's a number of things that aren't in here.
Right,
It's not just soil testing.
I want to specifically say soil testing because that is a key element in determining
Right.
number of lots.
So I
in a
think that's
subdivision.
fine. I would just say, I would be
Okay.
more generic because there's a bunch of things missing. And I would say, including soil testing.
Okay. So going back up to the list of waivers,
Mhm.
you want to say a subdivision that minimizes waivers?
Yeah.
Anything else?
Well, that's just my list. I
That's-
don't know if anybody else has
Yeah,
anything.
but I think that list,
Can I read back the first one to you?
Sure.
Direction with respect to existing and proposed utilities, including stormwater drainage, sewer and water, with capacities specifically addressed, with comments
Oh.
from the sewer divisions specifically addressed.
No, it's really sewer and water, sort of available capacity. Available sort of system-wide capacity, and maybe that's a better term. Basically, I want them to address where the capacity for the sewer connections and the water supply is going to come from.
Okay,
But then also address whatever comments the sewer division already
Okay.
provided.
anybody want to add anything else? Bill? No?
Anything about streets?
Right.
Deal with that
Yeah,
at the next
that's-
stage?
Subdivision.
You don't deal with it when it doesn't come in.
All right, I'll entertain a second on this motion as amended.
Second.
Did you have another comment?
Oh, sorry.
No.
Oh, okay, sorry.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Thank
Do we
you.
need to cut to the chase on the other three, which are identical?
No. I mean, yeah, we need to cut to the chase. If you're asking, can we just get to the bottom line, the answer is yes, absolutely.
I do have one of these for discussion. I just have a question
All right.
Yeah, yeah.
perfect.
on
no,
one
we
of them,
should-
but I'll bring it up when we
Yeah,
get to
well,
them.
we'll go through each
Okay.
one, okay, the next one, this is done. And now we have 14 to 16 Old Country Way.
So just going back, why is it called Buckeye?
Yeah,
Yeah,
The type of tree.
I know, but
The owners- the owners-
I'm a Wolverine, so it can't be Buckeye.
The Hoffmans, the name of the company that they created many, probably decades ago
Uh-huh.
to start Scituate Concrete and Pipe, this First Buckeye Corporation.
First Buckeye.
Yeah. And I just learned it had to do with Ohio State.
From Ohio.
Yeah. I was just doing a little school rivalry there.
all right, our next one, Paul, just, huh?
Which one are we on?
We are on
14 to
14 to
16.
16, Bob Proctor. He's
This is the existing site plan that shows the site of 29,249 square feet. It contains 2 single-family dwellings and an open area behind it. There's also a 24-inch drain pipe that flows through the site as well. The site is relatively flat. And the preliminary plan, we show 2 proposed lots, which is the minimum for a definitive subdivision plan. This is Old Country Way. What we did was put half a cul-de-sac at the street. We show lot 1 and lot 2. Both of these meet the zoning requirements under the current zoning bylaw.
What's the little tail at the end there that's going out there?
Part of the property line.
Really?
It actually has frontage on
Oh,
on
it's a
Old Country Way
pre-existing
and
rat tail.
Jenkins.
Well, the
Yeah.
frontage for these lots would be on the cul-de-sac here, here, and here.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So, Ann,
Yes.
this is the particular one I actually have questions about. Could you, if memory serves me right, so this site has been to zoning board of appeals. Am I correct or am I incorrect?
2 times. So we were before the zoning board of appeals last year for approval of 8 garage bay scenario. And after listening to the comments, and that was approved by zoning board, the use wasn't the issue, the use of the bays. It had more to do with setbacks from a pipe and so forth. But, and the amount of impervious area was really, really quite important. And so, but after hearing the comments of the neighborhood, we went back and reconcept and repurposed the project to be more in line with what they had requested. And actually, we consulted with Ann and Karen as part of that process. And so we were most recently back before the Board of Appeals last week, and we obtained the approval of the board for a new kind of site scenario. The concept is that we would be coming back, the special permit granting authority would be the planning board. And so we would have to file an application with the planning board. So this is kind of one of those circumstances where we actually really did spend quite a bit of effort designing this project under the old rules before we ever knew new rules were going to come into place. It was this property really that actually caused us to think about, oh my God, what happens if we go through that process and then have to, because we just simply couldn't get it together in time. So that's the long answer to your very short question.
So my, I guess my next question is then, in terms of, since you already have kind of a concept and plans worked out that you just met last week even with ZBA, and it sounds like you had input from planning on that as well, that this one's an outlier, as you do have kind of some ideas of the development potentially going forward, versus the other ones are very high level, conceptual, just legal. So I'm just curious how what this legal process we're doing tonight, how does this fit in with kind of the more real application, which is currently before ZBA or?
Great question. There's a scenario where I can imagine where we could say, all right, we'll just go through with the permits that we got a year ago. There are some issues with that permit, and I don't know if it ever would come to fruition, but that's something that I can foresee happening. That's not something that the owner wants to do. It's not something that, so what the real concept is, I'm not sure I even remember your question, Ben, but
it was more just that if we're kind of approving this preliminary plan,
yeah,
but there already is a pending, or a plan that was approved, but it's pending some alterations in the works. I'm just curious how this legal conceptual process could overlap with the Does anyone, I'm
Well,
having a hard time
well,
articulating
if we were to
myself,
get the, if we were to
Basically,
get,
I think what you're trying to say is this much more likely to get built the way it's shown, right?
no, not the way it's shown here.
Hoping not.
This was never the concept. This plan was conceived just to get the freeze. The concept has not been presented yet to the planning board, because we first had to go to the zoning board after we revised our plans, after we got our approval from the zoning board a year ago. We just completed that process. Literally, the discussion was had that we now need to look, because it's quite possible that your new regulations allow a better use of the property from the owner's standpoint than what was conceived weeks ago. We haven't engaged that analysis. So the short answer to your question is that this is a situation where we might avail ourselves of the freeze and come in under the old, but that determination hasn't been made, and it's also likely that, it's equally likely that we potentially could come in under the new. We just haven't caught up with the regulation yet.
So, but in your opinion, or this plan, and this goes back to kind of what we're started with, right?
Yeah.
Would this particular plan be what's built?
Never.
Okay,
That
that's
would
all,
never
that's
be
all,
built.
that's all I really need to know.
Nothing on
because-
any of these boards tonight would ever be built. It would make no sense for anybody ever to
Right.
build that. It would just be a
Okay,
loss
I just
for
wanted to go
everyone.
through that to make sure that we're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater,
Right.
since it seems like the development,
Yeah.
channel is moving a little faster on this property
Yes.
than some of the other ones.
Yes.
Okay. That's all I have.
All right. Why don't we do exactly the same thing, unless there's any comment from the public? Seeing none. Let's, on this,
So could I just read the top part?
read the top part.
I move to approve the preliminary subdivision plan of land at 14 to 16 Old Country Way, Scituate, Massachusetts, by Ross Engineering Company, Inc., dated March 26, 2019, for 14 to 16 Old Country Way, with direction to guide the development of the subsequent definitive subdivision plan as described below.
Okay, and we want exactly the same type of language.
It'll be the same language on all four of them.
Yes.
I mean, so it's, the modified language from the first one goes on all of them.
Yes. Okay. Is there a second?
Sure.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next. Okay.
Okay.
This third project is off of Country Way. It's number 42 and 46. This is the Reynolds Package Store. And this is the old car repair shop in this location here. This is the existing conditions plan. There's these two structures. There's an existing single-family home to the rear that accesses the site off of Drew Place. This is all existing pavement here and around the building. This is gravel, and this is all open lawn area. Proposed condition. This is the proposed lot layout. It shows two buildable lots. One would have the existing house on it, and the other one would be for a new house that would be constructed to the rear of the property. We show the proposed cul-de-sac off of Country Way. These two existing structures would be raised to make room for a cul-de-sac. There's sewer and water in Country Way. This would probably result in less impervious area. By virtue of taking all this pavement out, the building, the pavement in the front, this house and the driveway would stay, there's no increase there. And we'd have a driveway coming from here back to the proposed house. These are the new structures that have been constructed to the east of the site. And again, the access, there's also access to this house from Dewey Place, which is a private way.
So you intend to take both those buildings down?
Yes, in this scenario, if this project was built, the package store would go, and this building would go. And you'd end up with this house staying here and one new house being built back here.
But it would never happen.
Same, yeah,
And a
same
giant
question,
cul-de-sac.
right?
Oh, which
Right on
elevator's
Main Street.
No, really.
I don't even know why we're wasting our
This
time.
is a waste of time.
Yeah, okay.
Huge.
So we'll do the motion again,
All right, let's do the motion again.
Yeah.
unless anyone
I
has a
move to
question.
approve the preliminary subdivision plan of land for Pondview Estates, Scituate, Massachusetts, by Ross Engineering Company, Inc., dated March 21, 2019, for 4246 Country Way, with direction to guide the development of the subsequent definitive subdivision plan as described below in the previous three.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? All right, 7 McDonald Terrace.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul.
What are the trees?
Paul, why don't you stick around for a minute? Stick around.
No, go ahead.
Okay. This is just ridiculous.
Oh, I don't know if that exists. Does it exist in there?
Unbelievable, isn't it?
It is. We should get the answer definitively to that question for the future if we deny
Oh,
it.
it might, that might be.
Because I'd much rather would have just said, deny them all.
Yep.
You know, Go do what you're gonna do.
Oh, just jump in, Jeff, I
It's a
think.
construction site. That's how they keep track of you.
All right, yes.
Thank you for the record, Jeff Assett with Morris Engineering. And this property is, it's another preliminary definitive subdivision plan. Property is 7 McDonald Terrace. It's located with frontage on New Driftway as well as McDonald Terrace. It's located to the west of the Rivershed property, and to the west of this property is the MPTA. It's currently made up of 2 parcels, and it totals a little over an acre. One parcel is 7 McDonald Terrace, with frontage on McDonald Terrace. The other parcel is primarily undeveloped, no structures on the property, and it's on the new Driftway. The proposed preliminary plan proposes a roadway layout, creating frontage for 3 lots.
Same as before.
Is this gonna
Same
be
as
built?
before. And it, is this in the pipeline, or is this just,
Light in the sky?
This is a property that we've looked at under the old regulations quite a bit in the past years, and I do expect in the next month or so to look at it a lot closer and compare the 2 regulations.
So you don't
you
really-
might see a project in the next several
This would be an
months.
important parcel,
yes?
right? It's the gateway piece,
Yeah.
right? So,
That's not a roadway we want, right on the main road.
No.
No.
Nor does the
Half
owner.
cul-de-sac, yeah.
Hmm?
Nor does the owner. But, yeah.
All right. Any comments from the public?
Just a question. Mary Lou Consilvio from 22 Ford Place. With the construction of the 3 lots that they're mentioning, will it affect any changes in McDonald Terrace, or will it still remain dead-end street?
There's no intent to build this project. Is that?
Oh, yeah.
welcome to our world.
Yeah, really. They have no,
They don't.
we won't even go down that road.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
I move to approve the preliminary subdivision plan of land in Scituate, Massachusetts, showing a division of parcels 53-5-19 and 53-5-20A, located at 7 McDonald Terrace by Morse Engineering Company, Inc., dated March 26, 2019, for 7 McDonald Terrace, with direction to guide the development of the subsequent definitive subdivision plan as described below, as previous.
Is there a second?
Well, I'm wondering whether we should address the question that was just asked in here
All right,
Okay.
by saying that one of the things we'd like you to come back to when you talk about definitive subdivision is preservation of the cul-de-sac at McDonald Terrace
Sure.
Right.
as one of the things on our list.
yes, all right,
So I would
add that.
recommend we add that.
Okay. All right, may I have a second as amended?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Thank you all very much. I know it was a challenge.
more than a challenge.
Would have been easier my way.
You guys are good. You guys are good.
Okay, now we have a continued public meeting, site plan administrative review for the municipal water treatment plant. Well, 17A, 90 and 96, Tack Factory Pond Drive. Town of Scituate Water Division. All right, who is making this presentation?
We're gonna be built.
This is another one, there's no intent to ever build this, right?
Oh, well, I'm not sure about that.
First question we need to know.
Well, who's
Yeah.
here?
So no,
I think that's our opening line for every
Yeah.
Are you
subdivision.
really gonna build
Is there,
this?
you know something? They're not here.
Well, they're supposed to be here. They were coming.
Who's coming? A lot of people.
that would have looked bad for,
What?
that would have looked bad for.
So the other issue, though, to talk, all of this, to talk to Steve, is that the sewer department is telling us they can't add anything. No more houses, nothing on the sewer, nothing.
Yeah.
So we can't approve anything, right?
Well, we can approve it, they just can't
Yeah,
connect.
that's,
So,
No, I wouldn't approve it if they weren't able to
Well, that's
connect.
it.
I would say they don't have adequate infrastructure, right?
Yes.
So
so that's
I think
that.
that's why I wanted to put in the thing about capacity, both
Yeah.
on the sewer and the water side.
And they're all depending on this huge I&I project to go through, and they don't want it.
hello.
Hello?
Yes,
You make that work?
I have no clue.
Yes?
You want easel or you want that?
Director. If we can,
I think that might be a 1970 version, but I'm not sure.
It works
at one
just,
of the other meetings, they were poking it with a stick trying to press the button on
it works just fine.
When we originally approved it, it wasn't gonna be built.
I think this,
Oh, my goodness. We are just,
Are you really gonna build this, yes?
are we really doing this?
So we prepared a presentation, is it okay if I hand you out copies of that?
Certainly.
just make sure that Sherry gets a copy of it for the record. So.
This is right up your alley. That's why we
Thank
have,
you.
we couldn't do it
Why is this up my alley?
because it's water. This is what we do for a living, right?
And these are in there as well, this is the
Chairman of the
stormwater
NWRA for-
calculations that were submitted with the conservation
is.
submission, but
There it is.
in our discussion today, we decided to
Might have to turn off.
approve those, so we'll talk about that.
Turn off the lights, we can't read anything.
Whoa.
College.
We're only gonna do math.
God, what does this say?
Any differential equations? Let's get into that.
I don't even know what this says.
Thankfully, no.
I haven't integrated
Did you get
anything in
anything?
years.
Excuse me,
Do you have any?
anything for our town planner, please?
I just gave, yeah, I'm sorry.
All right, so this is the same thing as,
Ed, did you get this?
That I only had,
You can have mine.
I mean, really?
oh, this is Greek.
Whoa,
Do you understand this?
can you read this?
Yeah, it says required recharge.
Okay, moving
It's
rapidly
just
along.
math.
Just math, yeah, well,
Would you like one of these?
sure.
Go ahead, John. There you go.
we'll share. Not that we
share.
can
There you go.
understand it. Thank
If you
you.
could read that.
Okay, if you all would identify yourselves and,
So, good evening, my name is Mike Schrader, I'm with Ty and Bond, I'm the client service manager for the town of Scituate. With me is Alex Bouthelette. Alex is the site designer for this project, and Ryan Pavlika, who is going to be doing the construction phase services for this project as well.
All right, is there anybody here from DPW? Or the water department? What? What?
I talked to Kevin today, he said he was not available.
Well, excuse me.
You said what?
No, we're not going to go through this unless there's somebody here from DPW.
That Kevin wasn't going to be able to make it. I mean, Kevin and Ty and Bond have had several conversations today, and I've had several conversations with Ty and Bond today, too. And
No, this is not acceptable. The water department should be here along with the head of DPW, Kevin Cafferty. I mean, I find this to be somewhat,
we did not anticipate that this would close tonight because the stormwater has not been studied yet. So I think that it may be worth getting some initial reaction from the board in case you want any changes to be done to the plans. And some of
Definitely say we
the
wouldn't close
comments.
this
No,
hearing
we're not
without
closing it.
DPW here.
I mean, so, right, I mean, I was anticipating a continuance tonight.
I know, but still in all, I mean, I find it, anyway, all right.
You guys can sit down if you want.
Yeah, really.
Thank you. I can't talk when I'm sitting down.
I know.
Okay. All right, we'll.
Bill's trying to make this quick, huh?
Yeah, seriously.
Is that
All
gonna
right,
be the same
make
thing
your-
as up there?
Presentation, and we'll hear from the public, because I know they have some real concerns.
Okay, so the project that we're talking about tonight is the water filtration plant located at well 17A. To give some context to the site, the major features are a water treatment building, 50 by 60, a small water storage tank for finished water storage, emergency generator to power the system in case of power outages, and a stormwater treatment pond in accordance with the requirements of the Wetlands Act and the Town Act. And then what we're going to do is go through the design review process and the you know, the features of the site and how they were designed to accommodate the requirements. So just saying off the bat that the design as originally proposed meets all of the town, you know, zoning regulations, planning board regulations, Wetlands Act, Rivers Act. It was designed in compliance with all of those. And we had 2 different meetings with the residents in the area, and then made some adjustments to the design to try to push the building a little further away from the residences, at the same time staying out of the protected areas, the wetland areas. So just for some information, what this building contains, the water that's there at this well hasn't been used directly or put directly into the water system because it has high levels of iron and manganese, and that's what would turn laundry brown and that sort of thing. And
When you say it hasn't been put into the system
it used to
directly,
come directly into the system, and then the water quality got so bad that people complained that they took it offline, and they still needed the water. So what was constructed is a cross-country water main, or raw water main, that brings the water to the pond after the reservoir that feeds the old Oaken Bucket plant. And so what happens is that water then goes through Old Oaken Bucket. The problem is that well can only be used then when Old Oaken Bucket's online. And, you know, this winter we had to take it offline to do emergency repairs, and you couldn't use that water, yet you need it, you know. So Scituate has like a tenuous supply, and you need all your sources functioning to be able to, you know, sustain the town. So in order to do that, we had to do emergency temporary treatment and, you know, quite a few machinations to allow them just to take the plant offline for a month to do the repairs. So the goal of this project is that by filtering that water, it basically forces the same reaction that would happen in the pipes in these vessels, and you capture that solid material that was coming into your laundry is now captured in the filter, and clean water comes out. So it'll allow it to go back into and it would be in that neighborhood, it'll go right back into the system and be restored. And also, some of the things that it does is it restores, or it adds redundancy to it. So, most groundwater sources, it's very linear. It's a pump, it's a motor, it's a one generator. Any one of those pieces fails, you lose that supply. This one now will have, multiple pumps and redundancy for treatment. So, really, basically, the basis is these pressure vessels. It's like these tanks that have this special media inside it that causes the reaction and then captures the particulates. Some finished water storage pumps that would pump it into the distribution system directly. Chemical feed equipment to add the, call it the standard water treatment chemicals is, we raise the pH so that the copper in your pipes doesn't leach out, and that's, standard across the industry and across town. We add chlorine for disinfection and fluoride for dental health. And then there'll be a small finished water storage tank next to the building to store the water before it goes into the system, because there's not enough.
I'm sorry, could you tell me again what you're storing in the chemicals? You're storing chlorine?
Yep, so the chemicals
Fluoride?
are chlorine, fluoride, and sodium hydroxide, which is what we use for...
Potassium hydroxide.
Potassium hydroxide, sorry, I get these mixed up.
And we also have permanganate as well.
Right, and that's for the...
for oxidation.
Okay, that's a pre-oxidation for the filters, so that
That's right.
helps drive the reaction. So, even though they have the word chemical associated with them, they're, sort of standard water treatment chemicals. They're used in all the other groundwater sources in town. And actually, most of them are required. So, and then, with that, the chemical feed systems are, mechanically redundant. They're fully contained, so that there's 100% protection in case a vessel ruptures or whatever. There's multiple levels of design that this has to go through a design review with the state to make sure it meets all of their sanitary codes and water treatment codes.
Say that again. So when you say fully redundant, it's double wall containers?
No, so what I mean is like mechanically, right? So for every piece of equipment, there's an alternate piece of equipment.
No, I'm talking about the storage.
So the chemical storage is in a fiberglass or a poly tank, and then that's in a sealed tub, if you will, that will if anything leaks out of that, it would be captured in that.
And that containment size to handle a full...
It's typically designed for 110% of the tank
of
volume.
everything that's stored in there.
Exactly.
So this is in some ways it's a different kind of a project, and what's a little bit different than, say a commercial building is there's already a lot of regulations that govern this. So the fill, when they fill these chemicals, that system is set up with alarms so they can't overfill it. It's set up with a drip, feature to capture anything that could happen there. Like that. And we can talk about some.
Where does that all alarm?
Where's the alarm? It's local. It's right there.
Yeah, but there's nobody stationed here?
No, nobody's stationed here.
So how does somebody know the alarm's gone off?
Because they'd be there when the guy's there.
Huh?
They would go there when the guy's there for chemicals. It's like a once a month thing.
No.
Well, what if
no.
it spills and the
You know, what if
chemical, it
something
goes off in the middle of the
happens?
night?
And
There
'cause-
must be some remote
There-
monitoring.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, there is.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
they're adding, the town's working towards adding a full SCADA, and there's alarm functions that call out. But nothing's gonna happen. I'm talking when they're filling the tanks on a monthly basis. So it's like home heating oil, a big truck comes with a hose and it connects to a pipe on the wall. And that's what happens to all the other sources. So this is standard, there's nothing different about this than any other water filtration plant. You've got similar chemical facilities at your other sources. So this is nothing new. It's new, to come and talk about this, but it's not new as far as what you're doing or what the industry does.
Isn't this our fancy dancy $1 million filter? Isn't this the new one?
Yes.
Okay,
A lot more than $1 million.
whatever, okay.
So, specifically, what we'd like to do is just go through the site elements and the standard of review, talk about the individual requirements and how we've addressed them. So the first one is the protection of adjoining premises. Some of these I truncated because they're long. So originally, the building was roughly here, and we've moved it over to where it is there to just get it a little bit further. On the back side are the riverfront protection area and wetland resource areas that are considered jurisdictional, protected areas that have their own requirements and limitations associated with those. And then, so we moved the building and we're adding, we're adding screening here, and there's been some discussion about the deer resistance, so we're gonna change that to be a deer resistant plant or selection, and probably a better selection than just a standard arborvitae, not just because of the deer, but to make it more, natural looking so that it screens. But the intent is that by putting screening here on the high side and here in front of the building, it's gonna screen the building from view. That's the idea.
Can you identify the residential properties here?
Sure, there's one right here, and there's one right here.
I think mine is a lot closer than what you just said. Right, so
That-
lower left quadrant, right at the line.
This,
Keep going up to the left, right in there.
oh, I am pretty sure that's vacant, Alex?
Nope, no, his property extends down there.
Yeah.
So it goes down to, you see where the fence line is on the left side of the screen?
This?
That's the property line. Yeah, that's my
Well,
fence.
the fence there,
Oh,
yeah.
you said house, I'm sorry, that's my
Yep.
property, something.
Right, yep,
Yeah.
yeah, the house is down.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So the nearest house is this one down in the bottom?
Yes.
But
two
there's-
Proximal.
So the house.
Where's the other house?
It's off the, it shows on the locust plan better.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got it in here. I'm sorry. I can just pull this up.
Yeah, we do want to.
I'm just trying to get oriented here.
So while he's
Figure out
doing
the
that,
house.
the next requirement is for traffic safety, ease of access at street and highway entrances, exit driveways, site distance between driveway entrances and so on. And, these requirements are largely, I think, designed for commercial buildings and that kind of thing in more busy areas. But in this case, the site traffic consists of one trip a month estimated for chemical delivery, and one trip a day with a pickup truck for the water department to come check on. So they make their rounds, even though they have remote monitoring or alarms, they still go once a day physically, they're required. And again, everything that they do is driven by requirements and regulations and oversight on the state's part.
It's one delivery month per type of chemical.
That's a good question, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it depends on how quickly they're using them too, so they,
Yeah, it could depend on use of the well too. So
Well,
this
what do you
plant might not
expect?
be operating all the time, but
But
we would,
minimum-
we
Well,
would
what do you
anticipate a
expect?
minimum once per
Four
month.
trucks coming in and out of there every month.
right.
Well, it could be a single truck with a couple of bays that could deliver the different chemicals at the same time as well.
Are these pump chemicals, or are these in totes, or how's this
It would be
delivered?
pumped into the tank.
Pumped into the tank.
Bulk storage with
Right.
a transfer, system.
So how many trips a month? Could be
Minimum of 4.
a minimum of 4 and possibly even 8.
It's probably going to be a minimum of 2. So two of the chemicals, the hypochlorite, which is the chlorine, is a liquid chemical, And then the KOH, potassium hydroxide, is a liquid chemical. So those would be the chemicals that would be delivered on these large trucks. The other two chemicals are going to be in powder form. So they're going to come in like pallets more than anything. And then they get mixed within the plant.
So the chlorine's liquid?
Correct.
How big are these trucks?
The design vehicle is a tractor trailer, what they call a WB50.
Can you tell me about the descent from the street? I walked on it, was quite steep.
Yes, it is.
Chemical is a little.
So, and that's what the design here is shown is basically the whole site is on fill, right? So there's some fill here around to get this up to the right level for the stormwater pond, and then the road, or the driveway coming up, there's fill on the side. And this was actually one of the preferred alternatives versus the original design, but we designed it as part of the regulations is to minimize cuts and fills, right, or to balance them. So we tried to minimize the fill so that the site, if you can see here on the lines, it's very steep in the beginning and it continues to slowly flatten out here. So when you're looking at this, you notice that on this side, the fill is less than on that side because it's a side slope. So you're chasing that slope down the hill. And basically, yes, to answer your question, yes, it is steep, and that's why we're.
What's the grade?
So we've set the maximum grade on the driveway is 8%.
I can't imagine coming out.
That sounds pretty severe for wintertime.
Yeah, it's.
7.7%.
So that's still generally an acceptable grade. In fact, many roadways actually go above that. However, for this design vehicle and for the radius at the bottom of the hill, we want to ensure that this the tractor trailer is able to safely navigate on the site. But 8% is certainly manageable for that vehicle.
How will they plan to manage the snow and ice?
The same way they do with their other sites, they'll plow it themselves.
So they'll salt this, or what are they putting on?
Well, no, because it's, that's actually a good question. They're gonna treat it the way they treat their other wells. I'm not sure if they salt it or not, and they're the only ones that go there, so they probably don't.
But it's a water resource protection
Exactly.
district.
Yeah.
Right.
And certainly you don't want salt in there.
Right.
And this is a big tractor trailer that's tooling down this road.
Yes.
And is this road paved?
Yes, ma'am.
And how wide will it be?
16 feet?
16 feet, which is basically not much more narrow than subdivision roadway. That's pretty wide in one sense. I mean, you're not going to have two-way traffic tooling up and down that road.
I hope not.
And the part of it is for the
Correct. So that's mainly for the bottom of the hill there, to accommodate the tractor trailer, because the trailer's going to be dragging behind, and you need that additional width to make that turn at the bottom of the hill.
How do I turn it around on site?
right here.
So in the parking area, there's enough space for the tractor trailer to maneuver, to pull in and back out, and then leave the site.
There's absolutely no other way you can access this pump station.
This is the only nearby road that we can access it by.
And they need to get a pipe down there at the same
The
time, right?
river the brook is behind it.
Because they used to access that off of Old Oak and Bucket, but they had to cross the conservation land, right? At 190 or 160? Yeah.
There used to be a right-of-way behind it.
Right of way there, next to Cortez's house.
Well, some of the older wells, you can see still on the assessor's map, before they built the neighborhoods, there was, a longer road to get to it, and then that got, sort of cut up and apportioned. So the next design standard talks about safety and adequacy of the driveway layout, pedestrian safety, parking, etc. So like we just talked about, the design is around the WB50. And the other reason for that is that, you know, this is infrastructure, it's permanent municipal infrastructure. So someday the media will need to be replenished in the filters. The filter vessels themselves may need to be replaced. So you need to be able to access anything, you know, that you need to. So normally, it's a quiet site, you know, there's not a lot going on there, but, you know, if in the future you need to make an upgrade, or you need to make equipment repairs, that's important to have that. So another comment or question we had was, you know, to make the driveway more perpendicular, which is common for a, you know, like a road access, and you see that all the time where they change the way the road came up and now they make it direct because it's safer, you have better sight. Here, what we wanted to do was allow that vehicle to come straight in down the road, rather than try to negotiate a tight turn, and it's really not a traffic situation. You know, there's very little traffic on the road as it is, and this truck is very limited trips, so it's better.
So it's a one-way in, one-way out, so you
Right.
can only go in that direction or come
Right,
from
yeah,
that
yeah,
direction.
So that truck can't,
It'll be marked that way?
yeah, they won't, you know, I mean, they can't physically do it. You know, they can only go out the way they come in. So they're gonna come in, do the three-point turn, and then go right back out the same way. And so that provides, you know, good sight distance that way, and.
Is that gated at the road?
It'll be gated at the road, and it'll
Where?
be gated down here.
Where at the road will it be gated?
It's right at the
Right
entrance.
at the end. And that's.
So you're not going to do it so that the truck can pull in and not sit on the road while they're...
Unlocking the gate.
Again, you know, what I would anticipate from all our other site work here is that the town meets you there and they unlock it and you go in, you know, together. That's usually how it is you also don't want to create a, you know, sort of a hiding spot for someone to, you know, go park their car and drink beers or whatever, you know, you want to keep it,
Well,
secure.
they can find plenty of those.
Can I ask you how long it takes to unload this chemical stuff? How long the truck would be there? Do you have any idea?
I would guess an hour.
Yeah, I would say probably max hour.
And is the truck going all the time?
The truck would be, the
Running,
truck
yeah.
pumps would
It
be
would be
operating.
running.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a PTO pump. And again, so that's, you know, one of the questions about it at night, there's no night traffic here, you know, unless, you know, an alarm goes off or something, it's the water department. It's not, this is controlled. It doesn't,
So
you
we know
it-
that on Tuesdays it's coming at 2 o'clock.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's not a, it's a scheduled thing, you know. So pedestrians are not anticipated, and the sidewalk's actually on the other side of Tack Factory Pond. Oh, this is what it was, about headlight glare. No, it does not provide the minimal on headlight glare. However, there are no headlights in use. And there's no other cars coming to be affected by that. You know, it's a low traffic volume street. So, and it does accommodate, of course, emergency vehicles, because they, you know, the design vehicles, the same size or bigger. So the next one talks about.
Did the fire department review this?
I didn't get any comments from any departments.
Really?
I got one comment today, from Water Resources. I can double check with the fire department.
I just want to make sure they're bought into whatever the turnaround radius and everything is.
Like I said, the WD-50 is bigger than anything that they would have, and all their stuff would be single, I don't think they have any articulated equipment here.
Not that
I
I'm
think they're
aware
having
of.
hook and ladders. So another question comes up, or one of the requirements is disposal of sewage, refuge, and other waste. Oh, I'm sorry, sir.
No, go ahead. I interrupted you.
Oh, I didn't hear you, so that's why I kept going there. There's no sanitary facilities on site, so there's no sewage, right? There's no bathroom here. This is not a permanent work environment. This is they come and do stuff and they leave. So the waste that's generated on the site consists of what we consider residuals. And what that is that stuff that would come out in your laundry, that brown and reddish brown particulate that is the Scituate brown water thing, that comes out and that's forced out of solution as a basically like a fine powder. That's collected in a tank, and the tank is gonna pump to the sewer system. It's gonna pump down the existing pipeline and go into the sewer down the line. So there's no sanitary facilities on site.
Can you go back on that? You said it's a powder. How are you pumping it to the sewer
I
system?
mean, it's a particulate, so it's.
It's a liquid, though.
It's a liquid. It's in a
Okay.
liquid solution.
So it's the backwash from the.
That's correct. That's
Okay.
exactly what it is, yes.
So, and you've analyzed this material, so it's not going to create a problem in the sewer system?
Correct.
Not just the pipes, but I mean at the
No, yeah,
waste
yeah,
treatment
yeah,
plant?
and we've talked to the sewer department about this and what their ability to take it is, and it's basically inert. It doesn't impact the
treatment process.
The treatment process, it's more of just can you handle the physical?
Yeah, well, they
load?
drop out, right? So, I mean, they're obviously dropping out because they're dropping out all over town, right? So
Well,
the
right,
material
right.
does. So
Yeah,
I'm just
and it's-
asking, does it
it's
affect any of
basically
the
inert at that point,
processes at the wastewater treatment plant?
No, correct.
Correct, it does or doesn't?
No, it does not. It does not.
should settle out.
There's other treatment processes that can cause interruptions. They use alum and different things. This does not. This is just, I don't know, it's almost like, if you sandblasted what you've done, it's like it's not quite gritty, but it's just we call it particulate.
How often do you backwash and how much flow do you have on a daily basis?
So the design flows were 300 gallons a minute,
360 gallons a minute through the filters.
and they backwash once a day.
I think they can operate it once a day.
So they backwash, it's sort of like a washing machine. It goes through its cycles, and when it needs to, it backwashes through the filter, pushes out that material, that manganese and iron particulate that is taken out of solution, back into the holding area, and so it's an automated,
No, I'm trying to get a sense for how much additional demand are you putting on the sewer system when you're doing it?
So the tank size is 31,000 gallons for the backwash tank. And if I recall correctly, I think we sized that for pretty much a long weekend. So I think that was sized for, I think it was 3 or 4 backwashes. I can't remember off the top of my head.
But the point is, we've coordinated with the sewer, and, that he's aware of this. And
Yeah, no, I was just asking, how much are you dumping to the sewer on a gallons per day basis?
Honestly, I don't have that
So
number. It's not.
the size of the pump that we put into the
Kind of once per day.
tank was, I think it was going to be an 8 GPM pump, so it's going to be a relatively small amount.
But if this was 3 times, then it's 10,000 gallons a day.
Backwash. Yeah.
Relative to fire protection, there's a hydrant on site. Frankly, there's not a lot that can burn, there's no real wood involved in the construction. So the next component is adequacy of surface and stormwater drainage and snow melt runoff at the site, and then that continues on to talk about the water resource protection. So the stormwater management on the site, again, was designed in accordance with the requirements. There's bituminous concrete berms and all the impervious pavement. The grading goes down to a single low point over here where it's captured into a adequately sized stormwater treatment unit, and a sedimentation forebay to remove any sediment before it goes into the pond. And then the infiltration basin is sized to attenuate the peak discharge, for a 2-year, 10-year, and a 100-year. So water quality volume for the infiltration is met for that. And then the next concern talks about the water resource protection. And so, you know, this type of a facility by its nature has to be near a water source. So we're very aware of that, and, you know, we have to protect the source too, you know, with the design. So, one of the things that we do to protect that is intentionally design it so that all the stormwater goes to one spot, goes into one pipe, and before it goes into that stormwater treatment unit, there's a valve. And they can shut that valve and they can prevent that water from going into that, into the stormwater treatment pond where it then infiltrates. And then at the same time, you know, as part of the training and the operation of this type of facility, there'll be spill protection equipment and training on that type of thing so that, you know, we protect the resource. So yeah, that's basically what I just said. So that's a shut off, and that's a standard detail or a standard feature of a design for one of these plants because, you know, we design many buildings for different things. These are always located near a well, so, you know, it's important to think about, you know, you're right there in your source area.
How deep is this pond?
The pond is 3 feet above groundwater.
Right, so the bottom of the infiltration basin should be 3 feet above anticipated groundwater. Currently, as shown in the drawings, it is 2.5 feet deep.
And it's totally fenced?
So that is not fenced, as shown in the drawings right now.
Is the whole site's not fenced?
So the site is fenced except for the infiltration basin.
Why is that? Why wouldn't they fence in the infiltration basin?
Well, the intent was to keep any of the chemicals in the actual plant fenced and protected, but the infiltration basin effectively works as an adjacent wetland.
So.
And the site restriction is the site access is restricted.
Children seem to find a way to get to places that they shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see ice skating on this pond.
Alex, when there's no rain, is there water in this?
No, so only when there's rain, there's going to be water in this, and then the design is within 72 hours, the drawdown is supposed to occur, so no rainwater should be left in the
So it's
basin.
infiltration, not detention or retention.
Correct, right, so within what the calculations show is that within 50 hours of even a 100-year storm event, the entire basin will infiltrate. So there'll be no remaining water sitting in the pond.
Has this been peer reviewed yet? Do you know?
No, it hasn't.
Has not?
It hasn't been peer reviewed because this is going to be subject to peer review by Conservation Commission because they need a notice of intent. So that's one of the issues we discussed. We'd like to get it all resubmitted to Conservation so that the peer review can start because we rely on the same peer review when we just do it once. But the stormwater permit will be handled through the Conservation Commission.
All right, here's the thing, it's getting late. And I know that there are abutters here, and I know that they have some real concerns. So I think at this point, I'd like to hear from them, and if you would be kind enough to identify yourselves, please.
Can I ask Sean a question before you do that?
Yes.
You heard the design on the trucks coming back to 8% globe or slope. Any thoughts on that?
Steep. I have no idea what he's talking about for a tractor trailer.
For 50-foot trailer.
50-foot trailer? What type of gallon would you deliver?
It's 5,000?
No, so the two tanks are the two liquid tanks are 475 gallons. So 475 gallon tanks.
Are they in tandem?
I believe they can be delivered in tandem at the same time. So
Whoa.
they can be based.
No.
Wait a
This
minute, let's listen to Sean.
All right.
No, I don't think you're talking about tandem trucks, right?
Oh, no.
I mean,
Divided delivery.
Divided delivery, yes.
in other words, a tank attached to another tank?
No, not necessarily. So you have separate chemicals, but did you say 475 gallons apiece?
Yes, so the two tanks are 475 gallon tanks.
And you need a tractor trailer with those chemicals?
Yeah, that sounds like a little puddle jumper you need there.
But understand that
But
they
this
go to
is-
all the sources in
Right,
town.
so
and
they can
it's-
divide up amongst sources and
And
things
this-
like that.
Excuse me, Sean Harris, I'm on the board of selectmen, but I had asked Kevin Cafferty this today, I said, you know, one of the problems probably would be traffic from the residents. So I said, you know, can they make the deliveries on, you know, at the main plant, and then bring it up in cubes or whatever the case is? So, 475 gallons could be done on a one-ton truck, if they're not, you know, real dangerous chemicals, I don't know.
Well, chlorine could be.
Which one of your fuel trucks got?
2,800 gallons, they're smaller. So, you know, I don't, so if that's the case, you could get to this pretty steep road, and the road that's there now, and I thought about, I walked it a couple of months ago, and it is steep and wide. I haven't seen it compared to what's, you know, the old one compared to what's that, if that's the new one.
Same grade.
But there's, you know, maybe we'd have to pay a premium. This is something we go out to bid every year on chemicals for the different plants. But there's gotta be other methods of delivering the product, in like these totes, you know, these, and just.
Giant truck.
would need the road, the way it is.
And the other issue is that it doesn't really
Would-
matter.
would you please-
I apologize. Sorry, I live in Hardback, I'm the closest of butter. This is a two-road cul-de-sac neighborhood full of children from birth to 20. None of the children use the sidewalk most of the time. So it really doesn't matter that the sidewalk is on the opposite side of the street. If you have a massive truck taking a left out of the facility and there's a kid on a skateboard coming down, not paying attention, which happens all the time, earbuds and phone in hand, on a skateboard. So we really don't like the angle of the road as it is, and would like to see some of the resources be used to lessen the angle, make it safer so the driver could see the kids better. It's really not car traffic we're concerned with, it's pedestrian.
So,
This one.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
a,
16-year-old drivers.
it's not you know, the truck would come up and stop. So
Right.
these trucks are very slow, right? So it starts and it does its thing and it starts to pull out, you know. The thing with if you change the angle, you make it more difficult to make the turn, and then if we push the road out, it increases the amount of fill to get in there, but I don't know, you can.
Well, if it's a smaller truck, you don't have that problem.
You know, we talked about that at the first meeting. We discussed that with the town. We confirmed that that was the vehicle that they use and that the vehicle that would need to be used for, like I said, further,
For the deliveries
repair,
throughout, yeah.
For the
Yeah.
media
Maintenance.
replacement.
Yep.
That kind of thing. So again, I don't know, we can ask again, but that's, we asked about that the last time.
Why didn't
Right.
This came up before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is why DPW should have been here
Needs to
tonight,
be
Sean.
Yeah.
Can I add a comment?
Yes, sir.
My name is Steve O'Gross, I live in 77, which is essentially across the street. I mean, Time Bond's done a great job, given the direction they've been given, but the whole idea of the design criteria being a 50-foot trailer, I don't think came from necessarily delivery of chemicals so much as, I think Mike alluded to the fact that somewhere down the line there may be repairs, replacements, pieces and parts. If that's the case, you're talking about a trailer once every 20 years, somewhere down the line when repairs or something big has to come in and out of that plant. But a truck the size of what Sean drives to deliver fuel, to me, like how many, 2,800 gallons?
Yes.
To me would be adequate once a month. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is if you can reduce the design criteria from WB50, maybe you could do a little bit more with that road to make the access road a little safer and still accomplish what the water department wants to do by building a plant.
Yeah, because I would think you
What's the
could,
basis of the design criteria for WB50? I know that's the direction they were given, but does it have
It's
to
not
be
just the
the
direction, you know, they didn't, you know, the DPW didn't say this, that's the design standard that we use for all water filtration plans based on, you know, the criteria and the things that.
And how many water treatment plants are there in tight neighborhoods like this? You know, that's on an access road that's less than adequate. I mean, this is a real problem. So this is something that we will put on hold. We will talk about it later. Again, as I said, it's getting late. Yes, sir.
Paul Stutzman, Backpack on Drive. I just have a question. On July 18th, 2018, Scituate filed with the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs a plan for a water transmission line to go from well 17A to the reservoir of Tack Factory Pond, the pond, which goes into the reservoir. And this project was just a alternative on that filing. What happened to the water transmission line? Is that still an active alternative? Is it something, I mean, we spent money on it to file it and to survey it, and that this was just an alternative to that. So can someone just tell me where that stands?
If I'm not mistaken, Mike might want to help me. The temporary green sand filter?
No, no, this is a...
No, this, if I'm mistaken,
So currently, there is a transmission line, a raw water transmission line, that takes the water from this well and it brings it to, there's a reservoir that feeds a pond and that feeds the plant, and that goes all the way to the pond.
That's not my question. I
So
know
what
you
the-
guys don't know the answer.
No, we do, actually.
I talked to you out there.
Right, so I checked on that in between, and that design for that transmission line was to relocate that to the beginning, to the reservoir, to give it more time to go through, with the hope or the thought that some of the iron and the manganese would come out in the reservoir before it reached Old Oak and Bucket.
And then Old Oak and Bucket has a green sand filter.
No, Old Oak and Bucket is a sand filter for surface water. It's not a.
I thought there was a temporary one in there in the.
Well, there was, just to get it.
All right. We're not going to get carried away here.
Okay, but I just want to know what's up with that transmission line.
It's done.
I think we paid money for it, it's still active. Does anybody know?
Well, we'll put it
It
on.
wasn't a time bond project.
All right, we'll put it on the laundry list and find out, okay? Let's see what the story is.
Can I ask, another question is, one area we didn't get to is noise. And so I'd like to understand what kind of noise profile you're expecting here.
So, very limited, you know, like you can't hear the equipment with the door shut of the plant. It's all, you know, premium efficiency equipment. It's just pumps, basically, right?
But is it just a metal casing, or is it insulated, sound insulated, attenuated?
It is insulated for temperature, and again, there's not a lot of noise. There's no blowers are very noisy. Pumps are not that noisy, and again, this was something that came up and that we discussed previously. The loudest thing would be the generator, and that either functions when there's a power outage or it's exercised on a regular basis. That, again, is something that is timed. It can be set anytime, you know, Tuesday at 2 o'clock. It won't go off in the middle of the night spontaneously. There's not.
But you have a design criteria for this thing on the exterior of the building at a decibel level of some kind?
So, yes and no. It's not, you're really not attenuating anything. It's more from sort of direct experience that as you walk up to the building, you don't hear anything. You open it, you hear a whir of a pump. You know, that it's just not noisy equipment.
And there's nothing on the roof, there's no ventilation in this building, there's no ventilation in this building?
No, actually, it'll be HVAC. You know, it'll be
And where will that be?
That's a great question. On the roof or on the,
Should be in a place where it doesn't have a direct line to the residents, if it could be.
Yeah, that's a good point. Honestly, I'm not sure of that detail.
Yeah, I'm not.
Well, then that's part of the list.
Yeah.
And also, too, how tall is this storage tank? What is the elevation of this?
So you have, do you have an elevation on the?
Only the.
I believe it was going to be around 22 feet.
So
Okay.
That's correct.
Right,
Yeah. Yeah, so 20, 25 feet.
25 feet, and how tall is the building?
The building, pretty much at the eave, is about 20 feet 3 inches, so it's probably going to be roughly 22 feet.
View of the exterior.
The tanks are all inside the building.
That's correct.
Except
Yeah,
for one.
all the process equipment is inside the building, but there is that one storage tank that's just adjacent to the building, to the exterior.
Is this a metal building? Or is it?
Currently designed as, yes.
But the storage tank is the backwash tank.
It's designed
It's a
with
finished
wall,
backwash.
too,
Yeah.
So that actually helps with the noise, and it helps, just make the building more durable.
All right, we are going to continue. Karen?
Yeah, we did get a comment almost at 5 o'clock today from a member of the Water Resource Committee, and she wanted to know what the increase in impervious surface is. Will the concentrations of manganese in the backwash storage tanks qualify as hazardous material? And the plans don't seem to reference the 150-foot non-disturbance buffer zone from the high water mark of Tack Factory Pond Reservoir and from the edge of all tributaries. I will forward those comments, but I think that is a zoning requirement in the Water Resource Protection District.
Right.
All right, we are going to continue.
Lots to address here, I think.
Yes.
Well, those were all addressed, right? So
Well,
we
lots to
designed
come
this-
back and.
Right, tell us.
So
Tell
in
us.
the document that we provided you today, that's in the presentation, it addresses all of the stormwater issues, I mean, not stormwater, I'm sorry, the environmental regulations. The design was reviewed by a professional wetland scientist who did the wetland flagging, who did the demarcation, so,
So the 150-foot non-disturbed zone is
Yeah.
identified
It's
on the drawing?
identified.
Where?
Actually, if that's the requirement, there's a 100-foot undisturbed vegetation area, there's the river protection, 200-foot riverfront area that we stayed out, that, by the way, we were told that we should put the site inside of that, and you're saying, no, you can't, which is what they're backing up. This can come out of the peer review, but I'm confident that we meet all of
100-foot
the
radius zone.
town of Scituate and state regulations regarding both the Wetlands Protection Act, your town bylaw, and the River Protection Act.
This is a zoning, this is part of the zoning bylaw. with
Right.
the
Which
hun-
picks up the.
Right, but this is specifically in the zoning bylaw for the 150-foot buffer.
From the river, right? So we're outside the
No,
200-foot.
From the non-disturbance for the high water mark for Tack Factory Pond.
Which is how the river is defined, right, Alex? I mean, that's the definition of the top of the river.
Yeah,
is
so
high water
the
mark.
mean annual high
You
water.
can look into that for
Right.
the next time.
We're done here this evening, all right? Patty, please.
I move to accept the applicant's request to continue the public meeting for the site plan administrative review for the municipal water treatment plant well 17A, 90 and 96 Tack Factory Pond Drive until June 27, 2019 at 8:30 PM. And to continue the time for action for filing with the town clerk until July 12, 2019.
So you have a laundry list of things. Is there a second?
Second.
Is that a date that the DPW can be here?
Yes, absolutely.
So we don't want that
I
date unless they
didn't-
can be here.
I didn't check with them, that's the next available meeting. Your
Right.
meeting
Will
on,
you check with them? If they can't be here, then we need to
your
move it.
June 13th meeting's full, and
Right.
they can't even get on to conservation till June 17th. Because they haven't
All right.
filed anything, but that would be the soonest. I will check.
All right, does the second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sean, thank you for being here. All right, we have a couple more things that we need to get through.
Yeah, it's the typical, yeah. It's typical DPW stuff, right? Just put it wherever they want to put it. But, it's a well, so they're stuck with that. The interesting thing about it is, there's a well protection zone, but we have a filtration plant in the middle of the well protection zone. That seems a little weird, but, maybe that's how the regs are structured or something. Because I can see that you have the well, obviously, in the well protection zone, because that's what it's intended to do, right? But then you have a filtration system with a bunch of chemicals that
My little
potentially could get
design.
into
Right.
the well protection zone.
In case DPW wasn't here.
Yeah.
All right, we have 4 Union Street, John Harry.
What are we on now?
We're
Union
on
Street.
Old business, new business.
Old business, John Helen, 4 Union Street. Garage door and discussion with John. All right, Karen, would you come?
All right, you and Ann, went out to John Hallen's property, because he's getting close to completing his garage, his contractor's bay, and when we went out there, we noticed that the garage doors were not the same, which we knew that, and at that point, John proposed that he be allowed to replace the garage doors on the existing building, 1 a month. And the board last meeting indicated just informally that that would be acceptable to them. We also noticed that the snow storage area was crushed stone versus grassed, so that was essentially allowed more parking on the side of the property. There was no Cape Cod berm according to the detail, which I did find out from the board's consulting engineer, that they discussed that when it was being put down, and that the berm really serves no purpose because it's porous pavement, pervious pavement, and the water will just infiltrate, and the berm really is meant to direct water to a catch basin. So at the time, they decided it was the best thing to eliminate the berm, and that the dumpster isn't there. Trash is being handled internally without any dumpster, and the color of the clapboard siding and the pedestrian doors do not match the existing ones. So we thought it would just be easier if John came in and kind of explained where he was.
You're on, John.
Sure. I think that the clapboard, was a selected color that we came up with at the beginning of the project. The blue, so I had the same can of sample paint that we used and painted the clapboards. And the doors, the pedestrian doors were graded to match the existing. The old ones might have faded, but that's the same color. As far as the gravel, again, it was for the snow, place to put the snow, so we decided to use a little bit of gravel in that area. If you want some stone there or some large structures, we could, or put grass there, it doesn't matter to me. Most of it, as they say, the plows went over the area, catch the grass there, it just becomes a mess, and then it's just there, so that's why we put it, there's no parking there now, so.
Well, that's where I parked when I showed up.
Yep.
Right
I
there.
could put signs that say no parking, we had other spots available, the marked ones.
Lawbreaker.
Yeah, there was not a no parking sign there.
There was not a no parking
No,
sign.
there was not.
No, I didn't say there was, I said we can. But it wasn't our intent to do anything. It said on the plans, it was snow storage area. So we put, as I say, some 3/4 crushed stone on that area.
Anything else, Karen?
I mean, that was the list of differences from the approved plan to what was built out on the site.
Okay.
So if the board, if the board wants them to put a sign, or if the board wants them to remove the crushed stone, we should give them that direction tonight. We should, you may want to probably put a time frame on replacing those existing garage doors, since that was an issue that was there from the beginning of the project. That was a concern of the boards.
All right, comments from the board? Bill?
I think we gave them choices to match, which way to match the doors. But we-
The two new doors we put up, and the three existing doors, one's 5 years old. I mean, they work fine, but they don't match the new doors. So that's why they're $5,000 a door to put up, so it's $15,000 just to replace existing doors that work, which I've reluctantly agreed to do, but I'd like to do it over the period of some time. It's an aesthetic, it's not a functional purpose. So if I could do them over, every couple of months, put another door up, and,
Be done in 6 months?
yeah, as I say, I'm not hiding from it. As I say, that it was an aesthetic part of the project that wasn't really part of the extension. It was kind of added on, so I agreed to do it, so I'll do it.
Well, we kind of do like to get the aesthetics right when we do these things, so the fact that that was part of the approval, I would just say we should get it done. I'm fine with,
You have to-
doing it in 6 months.
Right, you'll have till December 1st. That's 6 months.
Okay.
There you go. But there's that. Anything else? What about the gravel as opposed to the grass?
Do you guys have a picture of that, or?
No, that's what I was thinking about.
I
Did
didn't
we,
take
did we get a picture?
No. I
We
didn't-
got
I
a
didn't
picture of
take a
something,
picture.
didn't we? Maybe something else.
You saw it, Ann, what did you think?
It's 3 parking spaces, no matter how you stretch it, unless you want to put in a ballard on each end or some type of post and put a chain or something so people don't park there. Then you can take it down in the wintertime and put your snow there.
Yeah, I mean, I could put a couple large stones if you want on the front of it. I mean, most of it is the snow plows, so it plows onto the area. If we start putting curving and stuff on it, you can't really plow onto the area. But if you, as I say, if parking is a concern, I was thinking more of snow as a concern. If parking is a concern, parking there, I can, as I say, maybe add 2 large rocks on the corner so people can't pull on them. Something, you know.
Put up a couple of no parking signs. Just keep it simple.
All right.
They're going to park there anyway, so
Yep.
it's a given.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to make sense to put obstructions in the way of where
Right.
you're going to plow the snow onto, right? And then you're going to have to move those.
That's silly.
They're
Yep.
going to end up somewhere over time.
All right, so I'll just put a couple no parking signs.
Have you applied for your certificate of occupancy yet?
Yes, it's in the process. We had the final inspection a couple weeks ago.
Okay, I think are we all set? Do we have anything else we want to ask Mr. Hallen to do?
No.
Okay.
No, I think we're okay with the berm, the way that's been changed, right? So,
Yeah, I think we did discuss that with the engineer on site during the project.
Right,
and the
that's
question was brought
that's what
up.
he told me when I spoke with him. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that's a reasonable decision.
All right, you've got 6 months and some no parking signs, and...
Don't come in mid-November, tell me you're not gonna get it done by December.
Yeah, right, okay?
We'll update you as we proceed and get them done.
Oh, we'll see them.
All right.
As we tool around town.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
very much.
thanks.
Okay, 50 Country Way is next.
Last but not least.
Last but not least. Karen.
All right, so earlier in the week, I discussed where the project was with the chair of the planning board, and we decided that it would be best if you came into the board tonight to kind of discuss where you are. At this point, I know that you're very eager to get at least a temporary certificate of occupancy for Building A. And that would be the last building out there to get the other 2 buildings, B and C, have temporary certificates of occupancy too. I You had indicated previously that the landscaping would be done by May 27th. I did go out there today with Patty just to see, I did see that a lot of the landscaping is done, but I did see that the grasscrete paving is blocking the emergency egress, which it is not, it's not supposed to do. And that is a huge problem, because that is supposed to be open at all times and available for fire department access.
That's already cleared.
Okay?
What was blocking it?
The paving himself, they unloaded the paving right there, and where they're gonna put the grasscrete, and it's meant to be open at all times. I mean, understandably, it will have to be closed while the pavement is installed.
Right.
But, I mean, that pavement being installed should be a fairly quick type thing.
And then it had some kind of
It's a grass
chain
crate.
or something across
It
there?
does have a chain across it, yes.
Yeah.
It
And
does
that'll
have a
be
chain.
installed as well, or is that installed now?
The chain is installed now. The chain is installed now.
The sign blew off this week, apparently. I thought it was blocking it.
We'll secure
In the
that.
wind, so we'll secure that.
And so the granite pavement that is, the granite blocks that were reused, excellent reuse of on-site materials, we had agreed that was supposed to be angled in the back, so the wheel of the fire truck, when it goes around into the emergency egress, would make the turn. And we had agreed last December, prior to occupancy of Building B, that parking space would be a compact space. And I didn't observe those things today. And the fire department is concerned that remain open at all times.
We moved the blocks, we pushed them on, I have photos, and the vehicle that was there is now moved.
Okay.
We're gonna make that a motorcycle spot.
Yeah.
That's okay to have there, I believe that's what we discussed before.
Yeah.
So I had held off signing off on the certificate of occupancy until they could come in and discuss where they were with the board. We do have the recorded public access easement, and we do have the recorded easement for the facade to say the same for 30 years. We still have some outstanding things that are not done. There's 2 ongoing conditions requiring traffic monitoring and trash removal monitoring. I just got the as-built today, which is not satisfactory. The as-built also needs a certification that the parking and drainage is constructed per the plans. All the site utilities and grading are supposed to be shown. It's supposed to be stamped by a PLS and PE, and it's not there. I can't give that to our consulting engineer to review for the drainage. It's not there. The information isn't there.
So is that something that Morse is?
That's something you'll have to go back to Morse. I mean, I can write that up.
If you can give us an email to send to them,
I just got
direct
it
them.
at 3:50 today, so
Mhm.
I did try to look at it. I
I
think it would be reasonable to probably put a time frame when all the things need to be wrapped up, but it would probably be reasonable to give them temporary occupancy.
And what time frame would you think?
Well, when is the Grass Creek gonna get down? I mean, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we probably need Morse needs to finish the as-built, and then we would give it to John Chesia as the consulting engineer to go out and review. And that could take a month to 2 months.
All right, here's the thing. We have had promises that things will be done in a certain time frame, and they weren't, for one reason or another. So in this instance, I think I know you're under the gun in a number of different ways. I think the temporary occupancy, it's up to the board. I would grant it. However, in order for you to get a permanent occupancy so that we can go forward with our affordable units and we can get a lot of these other side things done, it has to be finished. And the people who live there now really don't enjoy living in construction. They've about had it. So,
We're effectively done with construction. We're working on these paperwork items, I'd call them. I mean, John Cheshire reviewed the underground drainage when it was built. Everything's built according to plan. It's just a matter of getting paperwork that says so.
Yeah, but that's what's
It's out of my
really,
hands.
that's what's important. No, it is in your hands.
It's in Greg's, it's in
Well,
my
then-
engineer's hands.
Right, but then you need to
He
make.
works for you, though.
He works for you.
Yeah, I know, but he's,
Well, the dumpster enclosures, there's no dumpster enclosures there. I'm not sure if the drainage system was clean.
Can we discuss the dumpster? The-
Yeah.
Well, last time we met, we talked about if there was gonna be a fence there or not.
Right, I mean, the plans show a fence.
So the one in front of, between the front building A and B, it is.
20 feet
dumpster-
wide.
Yeah, it's probably
at
maybe
least
more than that.
30 feet wide.
If we can close a fence, it's gonna open up block parking temporarily, but when snow removal comes, it's kind of a bigger issue for us. What I would what I would propose is if a fence is needed, only a certain section of it for the amount that we need the dumpsters for.
You lost me there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what you're talking about, so.
So we have, this is building Countryway.
You can go up there
Oh.
so that they can see.
So there is a concrete pad here where the dumpsters go.
We're using like a 6-yard dumpster.
Yeah, the dumpsters are only gonna take maybe, I don't know if they'll even cover half of it.
Not even a quarter.
And if there's a complete fence going across, it's just gonna be an issue for us. I mean, snow removal is a concern for the future, and ideally.
Is that the only dumpster for the entire property?
No, we have a dumpster probably back here to recycle and dumpster.
yeah, there's two of them back there, yep.
Okay, and what about the other building?
We have room for one here. We had them here. This is a tight parking spot. We moved them over here. We have enough, or they're big enough right now to handle everyone. So I don't know if.
So you want to make a fence just big enough for the dumpster?
Yes. Just because it's, this year we've got lucky that we didn't have to remove any snow, but it does help when you have a large room.
Karen?
Well, I mean, we just don't want these,
No, they have to be enclosed,
Yes,
right?
they have to be enclosed,
Can't
and
be
we don't
sitting
want
out
them
there.
unsightly,
Right.
is what.
Closed and covered.
Closed,
Do you want
covered.
like a chain link fence? What's the typical for
It's
Nothing that
it's
is.
covered with like, what's the material?
Vinyl.
Yeah,
those
the
vinyl
the
stripes
vinyl,
that
yes.
go into the chain link? Is that what were you talking about?
What was the spec? Was there a spec?
No.
There may not have been a spec. There is a detail somewhere on here.
Somewhere. Because we want this done as much as you do.
It was
I'm
a
sure-
it was supposed to be a vinyl coated chain link fence dumpster enclosure.
Okay.
With, is it like privacy fence though?
It has fence fabric with vinyl slats.
Fence fabric, okay.
Right.
So it is it's.
Privacy type of thing.
Yeah, it's
All right.
It doesn't
obscures it.
give a color or anything.
Different preference.
I think the color of his shirt would be perfect.
All right. We'll see if we can match that. I'm not going with that.
I'm on either end, sorry.
That's right.
All right.
I don't think you guys want the silver. I think you want it to be
Green.
Green.
Green or dark green or
A
something along those
darker,
lines.
a darker color.
Yeah.
All right. So,
So I would say the smaller enclosure as long as the dumpster has the capacity to handle all the trash. That's
Yes.
job number one, right? And then enclosing it, it doesn't have to go all the way across. I mean, you could build an enclosure around it.
Okay, that would help.
So I am unwilling to even grant temporary occupancy until that fire lane is completed.
When will the fire lane be completed?
The grasscrete,
Mhm.
it's complete now. The grasscrete will be put down early next week.
So where the chain link goes across the concrete, the asphalt is collapsed.
No.
No, right now it's gravel.
No,
They
I
need to
understand
dig the
today.
gravel
I know.
out and put those grasscrete blocks that the grass grows through.
Yeah, I was,
Yeah.
The fire trucks had already driven over this
Mhm.
and tested it. This is where, that's a chain link. That was just us. We moved all those are the blocks that are going to be going in there.
but right now the fire truck can't get through there.
Yes, they can.
Can now.
Okay.
We moved them by hand today.
The company that delivered them pushed
Screwed
the
up.
spot.
Mm.
The fire truck did go down there last
As long as
December.
as long as the fire department's
They did the test.
satisfied they can get in there,
They-
except when they're actually physically doing the
Right,
construction.
they had the
Just
big
today?
engine down there,
Yeah.
and, I mean, I think we'll just have to fool around with the granite blocks, because it was supposed to be angled, because the back wheel of the fire truck is gonna
I
run
think we
over.
pulled, did we pull those back, Mike?
Yeah.
The granite curbing?
So I guess when they design them, I don't think it will actually block, because the ground's already, they just do a section at a time, the ground's already hard enough. Fire truck would go by potentially.
So it is kind of an aesthetic decision to put the grasscrete blocks so the grass can grow up and look grassy as opposed to a
Yeah, I
gravel.
mean, as long as the fire
pad.
department says they've got access, and I can't imagine that's gonna take more than a day or so to put that stuff down. right?
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean,
Yeah, and there
gotta live
are, I
with that
mean, Al,
construction.
I spoke to Al Elliott today, that was
He's
the
okay with
plan.
that, yeah.
That was the plan all along, that was the grasscrete in the spring.
Yeah.
That was planned there, but just the fact that it was blocked off, no sign, that was a big concern to Al today. So, I mean.
So it's no longer blocked off and it has a sign,
Yes.
correct? Okay.
Yeah, the something, yeah, Carol will be there first in the morning.
I mean, so there's still other items. I have not done a complete walkthrough. I imagine John will do a walkthrough. I mean, there's still some striping for the walkways, I think, that needs to be done, the public access path that needs to get there. And you are still holding the performance bond right now for $587,000.
Okay, well, that'll cover a lot of striping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would be okay with doing the TCO, but let's try to get a deadline to finish
How
this
about
off.
July 1st? Are you going to be done July 1st?
Let's,
Do you think, Paul,
let's get it done by July 1st, yeah.
and you can rattle
Yeah.
your engineers?
Yeah, I'm not the only one he's working for, so
Yeah,
he's.
but even so,
I'll,
Well, he's definitely not working for us.
right, so it's up to you,
All
not
right.
up to him, it's up to you.
All right.
All right?
I know it's getting late, but I just had a couple questions.
Sure.
The parking study, is there, I guess, verbiage in that, how it's supposed to go?
For the parking.
Like, is there a firm you guys recommend for the parking?
for-
Traffic
For
monitoring.
the traffic
Traffic
monitoring?
I guess I don't know why it couldn't be done by the firm who did it, I mean, I can go in the file and
And
get,
find out.
get who originally did the traffic study, and then you can follow up with, it's just to show that the numbers are consistent with what they assumed.
And I guess there's a way to separate out our traffic versus the neighbor's traffic from the morning glories?
Now, you're doing a post-installation traffic study, basically, right? So,
6 months from now, but, so,
Yes.
yeah, so it's
I guess there's
it's gonna
just
be,
need-
they won't, I don't think they'll differentiate whether the person's going to, what's it called, Gunther Tooties?
Gunther
Or
Tooties.
whether they're going to the.
Well, they're gonna have a lot of drive-through traffic, so, I mean, are we gonna be penalized if they have a lot of traffic?
Well, they had a lot of drive-through traffic in Morning Glories too.
Sure.
So, that was in the base numbers, right, so.
Right.
If it changes, it changes. I think it's just a way of circling back and saying, the numbers look consistent with what we assumed, and the performance of the intersections look
Okay.
like they perform correctly, right?
And then there's trash removal monitoring too, that, that's, 6 months to 2 years after, because.
And what's involved in a traffic, I'm not familiar with that.
That's a good question, but it's to, if there's any problems created by the trash trucks backing up the distance that they have to back up.
All right, I mean, that's been going on weekly without incident, so.
I think that was, maybe I misunderstood that when what you're talking about, but I think it was more intended to look at, do we have adequate trash receptacles for the volumes that are created, or do we have overflowing dumpsters and stuff like
I
that?
thought it was part of the distance, they have to back up, basically a fairly long way in the parking lot.
Yeah.
They're bringing in.
That seems like that would, I don't know why you'd have to do that over a long period of time, right? That seems like a one-day test or something.
Yeah, like testing the fire trucks.
They bring in smaller trucks than kind of some of the other.
Yeah.
Bigger ones that.
Because we're using a couple, 6-yard dumpsters, which we find are
That might be
fine
pretty
for weeklies.
straightforward. Again, I don't know
When do they pick up, weekly?
what the trash study looks like either. I was thinking it was more related to making sure we had adequate trash
Me too. Yeah.
removal.
They back up down my whole street.
They back up?
Yeah.
Are they just having fun?
Waste
or are they
management,
just-
waste management, they come in, they back up the length of my street.
They've got cameras now.
The last question is the easements, the public access path sign. It says type D or E, and I just wanted to make a decision because
I was gonna go for the D, which was like the signpost, like the park, that one.
This would be option.
And you're suggesting the first one? That seems more sedate. The other one looks.
That's our logo.
What do you imagine, and I'm going to punt to you on this, what do you imagine long-term for wayfinding in the Greenbush Village area? Like, do you think that sign is better, or do you think having the kind of pointer signs? Because we should think about, if this is a public walkway access thing, that we got to keep
What's on
it
that
consistent
sign?
and uniform.
Well, and
so.
they're that's part of the condition, they have to supposed to put some suggested locations too, like Driftway this way.
Yeah, we got.
Right.
I mean, so that
Oh, so
does
this is
have to-
wayfinding is what it
Wayfinding.
is,
Right,
right?
it's wayfinding.
It's not just saying this is a public path, but it's saying.
It was gonna say public
Go this
walkway with an arrow saying bike path or
Yeah.
something. Public bike path.
Yeah, and suggest that Driftway might be this way,
I like that.
or.
Driftway, the road.
Yep.
I think it's just that whatever they do,
Right, yeah.
everyone else now
Okay.
has to
Say
do
country,
that.
on the
so
other way,
that's
we
all.
could say country
Right,
way.
Countryway, right.
That's good.
Right.
If you're coming
That's
from
interesting,
the
yeah.
train station.
Has arrows and it's the big.
Okay,
All right.
Yeah, sure.
all right, so I have
How many,
one,
how many,
there's supposed to be one.
One on each end.
One at each end.
one at each end? So at one end, it's gonna have that
With an
sign.
arrow ahead that says bike path or
Right.
public
Or it
access.
says,
I guess, can we decide what we should put on it? Or if that's-
yeah, because I'm thinking, that's what I'm thinking is, what are you gonna give people direction to?
Well, one goes
bike
up
path.
The Driftway, bike path. The other one,
Well, I mean, it should be labeled as public access
Yeah, I would
path
say public access.
Yeah,
With the
public.
arrow.
with, I mean,
Well, it'll be on the path, so it's saying this is the path, right?
Yeah.
But I think the signs were to indicate, go this way to some destination, right?
Reynolds
Right.
liquor store.
That's not
Oh,
gonna
you
be
could
there.
have
This
it,
way and,
That's not
you
gonna
could
be
sell
there.
advertising. You could say this way to Untold, right?
right. Bermuda, 2,300 miles.
Going down the boat.
all right, so I just have one additional question for the board. so that they don't have to come back again. At what point would you like the performance bond released?
Well, what's your judgment on that? You're still waiting for a bunch of stuff, right? And you want to make sure you get that.
Right, so the performance bond was to cover parking, landscaping, walks, and other amenities.
Right.
And so, initially, you know, we have the estimate of 587 when they indicated this winter that they thought they might want a bond reduction. It would cost landscaping, et cetera, and the grass creek was like 66,000.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you want to wait till the end where when the landscaping is all completed and they go into their guarantee period to release the bond, or when do you want it released?
Certainly after the grass crete or whatever,
So we're
that's got to be
talking
installed, right?
Potentially July 1st then to release
Yeah.
the bond.
That seems reasonable.
Same time as
Yeah.
everything else is done, okay?
All right. Do we have to have a motion to release, to give them a temporary occupancy? Or
I'll just sign it tomorrow. I'll go
Good,
in,
fine.
I'll go in first thing in the morning and sign it.
All right.
You made a
Okay.
lot of dogs happy tomorrow.
Yeah.
Make a lot of dogs happy?
There's pet grooming.
Oh, is that right?
Salon.
I didn't realize that.
Oh, goodness.
There's one over at town.
So are they intending to open tomorrow?
Well, they're eager to.
Yeah, easy to get going,
Test
yeah.
dogs.
Is the kitchen place open yet?
They're on their build out right now. And then,
If only I had a dog.
Do they do cats?
cats are not grooming. Seaside Pet Spa.
A cat
Seaside
groomer,
has
that's
been anywhere.
gotta be a
It's a
much
brand
more
new-
dangerous job
yeah.
than a dog
They were in
groomer.
North Carolina, they moved up.
No, Nashville,
Nashville.
Nashville.
Tennessee.
And they came here?
Is there
They were
any-
from here originally
Oh,
and moved back.
Yeah,
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
so
So
moved.
I'll sign that first thing in the
All
morning.
in favor?
Aye.
They came from down south.
Tennessee, they had an operation in Nashville.